welcome back to the Board of Commissioners work session at 1 o'clock on Tuesday, June 3rd. We are convening now for our joint annual meeting with the Washington County Fair Board. Before I turn it over to Fair Board President Gary Seidel, for the purposes of our Fair Board members, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves, starting with Commissioner Willie.
Jerry Willie,
District 4.
District 4.
Pam Trees, District 2.
Catherine Harrington, at-large chair.
By District 1.
Jason Tyner, District 3.
Leah Perkins Hickley, venue manager for West Side Commons and the fair manager for the Fair Board.
I'm the county administrator.
They're Kevin Moss.
And over to you now, President.
Commissioner, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and with the Fair Board. I know we don't have everybody on the Fair Board, but I believe some of them are probably online on Zoom.
Nope,
Okay.
none yet.
Yeah.
And yet, okay.
Kevin's
that,
monitoring that.
I am Gary Seidel. Came up here in 2004 as the fire chief and then retired in 2012. And in 2013, I was elected to the Fair Board. And so I've been on the Fair Board for past 22 years or 12 years. 12 years. I can't even count. I've been 12 years. So, and then I've been the president here for about 6. So dealing with that, we have Bill Ganger. Bill Ganger retired from PG&E. Bill, I knew, was at home and dealing with some issues in that, but he couldn't be here. Bill's probably the oldest living 4-H member still alive. But he's been on the board. He came on in 2012, I think, 2010. And so he's the longest representative on the Fair Board to deal with that. Also have Bob Rollinger, who is not here. Bob is a real estate agent, heavily involved in a lot of activities in the city of Hillsborough, as well as the Rotary Club. And so Bob came on 2014, 15, and that deal with that. And then after Bob in here, we've got Troy Sabellas. Troy came on last year. Came on, and he's been with us, health member, and also Intel, deal with that. And then finally this year, we added Jason Hernitz to our membership of the Fair Board in there. And so we are glad to have Jason on board. And Jason also is with Rotary Club in here. Majority of the Fair Board members were or still are Rotary as well. So with that,
And that would be Hillsborough Rotary,
that would be Hillsborough Rotary.
one of many Rotaries in Washington.
That is correct. But it's the #1 club.
You're not biased, right?
I'm not biased.
And Fatine is,
And then we have Fatine Mahmood, who's not here and usually on Zoom. Well, there's Zoom, but he's not here. And so those are the members of the board
There's Bob.
deal with this. And here comes Mr. Bob Rollinger. Right on time, Bob.
Right on time. Late as usual.
Went to the wrong building.
uh-oh.
We're not the city of Hillsborough. Yeah, we're over here. Sorry, Bob.
What building did you go to? You want one of these chips, Jerry? No. And deal with that. So these are the board members that are currently serving the board at your direction, since you've elected us all to be on the board. So we do appreciate that. See what's going on. Next thing is kind of review of our current strategic plan. This strategic plan we did put in play about 2 years ago. I think it was 23. I put it in play to be able to go through there. We had a facilitator lead us through the strategic plan and helped us be able to put that in there. As far as the governance, we do report to you. You are our board that basically appoint us to be on that and give us the permission to be the oversight for the fairgrounds. As the Fair Board, we do oversight of the fair budget. We also maintain the fair strategic plan, establish policy for the fair, and then we also award contracts for those vendors that are coming in to be able to provide the entertainment to the community and see what's going on. Our main vision, like it says up here, is mainly inspire and preserve heritage is what we try to do. We try to do it with our motto of Big Fair Fun. And yes, purpose is to maintain the community. The citizens anybody that's coming in to visit, as well as past and future people that would be coming into the fair to be able to enjoy things that are going on. The annual fair is accessible to everyone, and it's a free fair. So anybody wanting to come in, the fair is free. We just ask that you come in and maintain a safe, healthy atmosphere, because we're not looking for any activities to entice basically Hillsborough PD or the sheriffs to have to step in. And for the most part, we're able to maintain a good, safe fair to see what that's going in there. And those are the key functions we do for the community building and then the fair to deal with that. And again, we look for relative exhibits. We're always looking to see what the future farmers of America would like to be able to see and make sure what's happening in there, as well as what's in the community. And we do a lot of partnerships with Intel to be able to also look at technology and to look at other issues of what's going in. And so we deal with those in there. Sponsorships, we do seek corporate sponsorships, Intel being one. And so that's one that comes in. And with that, it determines what our budget's going to be to provide the entertainment. On the entertainment, we like to be able to make sure it's well-rounded for all visitors of the fair and to deal with that. And then basically, we're always looking administratively to run this with the best practices and to make sure that we continue to look at the strategic plan, update it as necessary to see where we're going to deal with that in there. The recap that we had from last year in there, last year was basically one of our biggest years because we did have an 18% increase on what's going on. Roughly about 187,000 people came to the 10-day fair. 10-day fair, we start off with the open fair, and then we move into 4-H FFA through the second week to be able to deal with that. Last year, we did have 31 food booths, 220 commercial vendors, 38 carnival rides, which I know for the carnival, that was the largest that they've done in the past. And then we had roughly about 23,000 cars that came into the lot to do that. And so, again, even though that was an increase in cars being parked, we still always encourage transport on the buses and or coming through the transit system. So we like to be able to see what's going in there. We had a total of 939 animals. 302 of them are 4-H, 97 for FFA, Future Farmers of America, and then 540 were open class to see what's going in there. 203 4-H kids, 49 FFA kids. And then Lee was able to put together the entertainment acts that come in. We had 42 variety of different entertainment acts in there. The one that I keep looking to see come in is axe throwing.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so I deal with that. We had all the high school groups do come in, provide assistance in there. Plus, we're able to give them some funding for their schools and for what they're representing in there. And then the best thing we had is we had perfect weather all 10 days. We're hoping that we can have that in here.
I ordered
Looking
it.
at some of the inside, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to.
Could we go
eliminate
back one,
some of the-
please?
What's that?
We go back a slide. Could you please remind me what open class is about?
Open class is basically it deals with the adults and it deals with any of the kids that are out of 4-H that would like to show their animals and also like to participate in trophies so they can get to the state to be able to deal with that. And so they will provide, because we will judge their animals. And then they also have a means to be able to get some revenue, to be able to provide some assistance in there to help sponsor that animal because it costs an awful lot to raise that animal. And so we'd like to be able to do that. And or especially the kids in 4-H, as well as FFA, they're getting ready to go into college. And so we'd like to be able to provide them some monies in there. And so we have a lot of people that come in and provide assistance, like Washington County Bank, be able to do that. Comes in with Jason and that, they provide good assistance in there, as well as a lot of other people in there. So
Just
Okay.
one more clarification note on open class. So we have open class animals, like we have noted here, and that's like Gary said, they're adults who might have been 4-H and FFA, but can also just be anybody within the area that has animals that want to show them. But also open class is adults who want to bring in their jams, their jellies, their pies, and such items that are handy.
And then a lot of times too, we'll bring in small animals. We can bring some in the birds, we can bring in the cavies, and then we can also bring in turkeys.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at you, just to make sure.
I
you're
caught,
right with me
I
here.
caught that. I got that.
I'm just making sure you was agreeing, so that's going in there. And then basically our partners that come into play is, LA County or White LA County. That's where I was from. Washington County Sheriff's is a big process of what goes on with this in there. So, they provide us a lot of assistance in there on different needs from uniformed officers to undercover officers. And they also provide us in all the other potential means to be able to make sure we provide a safe, healthy environment for the fair in there too. And then we also have it led by, we have a lieutenant from Hillsborough Police Department who's retired that has come in to be able to assist and work through to be able to make sure we got that in there. We had to bring in somebody from Hillsborough Police Department because they are the best police agency in this. The sheriffs of the county. Okay. And as a firefighter, I do like to pick on sheriffs. Go in there, but we do that to be able to make sure that everything is set up according to the policies of the county, rules and regulations, as well as the policies of the fair.
So I just want to, you all hear a lot about One Washington County. And I said this last year and I say it again in all seriousness, this event is really One Washington County, and just our county partners alone that play a crucial role with the Sheriff's Department, but also parole and probation and juvenile services do a lot to help us keep our partners safe on the grounds. But also Health and Human Services, they come out and they inspect our food every day. We've got our epidemiologists who make sure that our animal biosecurity, so people aren't getting sick from touching the animals or stepping in manure at the fair. We spend a lot of time making sure that doesn't happen. County Facilities Department provide electrical services and other safety support for us. County Finance, Risk, and Purchasing, we process hundreds and hundreds of contracts for vendors and entertainment. We also process millions of dollars of cash, and our finance department and risk and purchasing makes sure that all of that happens very smoothly and isn't anything we ever have to think about. County Council makes sure we have policies and is on speed dial during the fair. And then also our community officers for coordinating that booth in the wingspan. I'm sure you've all been by the Washington County booth during the fair. It is very, very popular, and all the different departments hand out a lot of county swag, and we see it all throughout the grounds. The families really love that. So.
And one thing Washington County sheriffs also do is they provide their posse. So we will get their horses and the officers that are part of the posse, which is kind of nice. And that happens to be the group that comes on in with the outsider in the center, Steve Volsteck, Hillsborough Police Lieutenant, retired.
So this was the last day of the fair last year at 1 o'clock in the morning. These were the officers who finally got all the people out, and they decided to take a group photo. So I thought that was a fun photo, so that's why I wanted to include it. Yeah. Okay, so moving on, a quick financial update. So we are just getting ready to close out fiscal year 24-25, which encompassed the 2024 County Fair that Gary just provided a recap for us. These numbers are projected, the actuals are projected through June. So we've got actuals through May, but I projected through June. We had a good year last year, and I think a lot of it was a lot of, great planning, and we're really getting a lot more people to come to the fair and stay longer and induce spending. But that magical 85-degree weather that we had for, all 10 days last year, we just can't beat it. So on years that the weather is great, people stay a long time, they spend more money, more people attend. So we make more money, and it's reflected in the financials. So it was a good year. We'll projected to make 7% more than we budgeted and spend 8% less than we budgeted. So great year in 2024. So rolling into our requested Fair Board budget for this coming year, and I will have to put my glasses on for that because this print is very small. Not a lot different. We're projecting to a balanced budget for the Fair Board, $2.5 million for revenue and $2.5 million in expenditures. Hopefully we'll have great weather again and people will spend more money and we'll have more people attend, but that's the budget that we have requested through the budget process. And I just want to also point out that things are more expensive. The Fair Board hears about this a lot from me every year. Things go up, and we're already getting notifications from our partners about things that are going up. For example, I just ordered the ribbons that we hand out to people who win first place. There's 117% upcharge for tariffs. So things are already starting to come in more expensive right out of the gate before we even get close to opening. So we'll be making sure that we monitor our expenditures very closely moving into this next budget.
Could you briefly summarize what fits into materials and services and what fits into other expenditures?
Sure. So other expenditures are things like entertainment, so materials and services are very much equipment, office supplies, county indirect charges. A lot of it is equipment. We rent a lot of tents and tables and chairs and generators and porta potties. So it's a lot of just the materials and services, janitorial costs. We spend a lot of money on toilet paper. So that's all encompassed in that. Other expenditures are those things that don't necessarily fit into a typical county budget. So we buy a lot of ribbons is a great example. There's not really, even though it's a material and or service, it doesn't really fit into a specific line item. So there's just those other things. The Fair Board breakfast is an other. So I can absolutely provide you a breakdown. It's actually quite fascinating. So when you really look at you drill down to all the things, but materials and services is almost entirely equipment and those just supplies that it takes to put the fair on. Thank you. You're welcome.
Other expenditures will probably include the security that we pay for, a lot of professional services that are wrapped in
So, and though that's in materials and services. So
Okay.
safety and those kinds of big parking services are in materials and services. The other thing that's in other is 4-H, FFA, open class, ribbons and prize money that we pay out, judges, all the things that go with that exhibit program is in other as well.
Are the items that fit in each of these categories generally influenced or dictated by standard county categories? And if there isn't one of those, then put it
Then it's
in
created and goes
separate
into
line
other.
items under other?
Yes.
That's what I was guessing.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, very.
thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Absolutely. Okay, moving along to a county 2025 update. So the cool thing about having this joint meeting later than we normally do it is we can give you a great preview on the 2025 fair. Normally we do this either in the fall or early in the winter when we don't have a lot of these finalized, so we don't get to do this with you guys very often. So my marketing team put like 4 slides about advertising and marketing this presentation, and I'm not going to drill down into it as much as he would like me to. But I do, I started looking at this going, wow, he got really technical on this, but that is his job. So, and it's all, exactly, it's why I love having a very technical marketing and sponsorship person. He gets really into the weeds and he's very excited about all of the different ads that we're doing because we're doing some things that are different. And that's really the point that I want to get across is number one, we are retiring our logo from 2013. It was time, and our marketing team went through a really great planning process and put together a really great new logo, which I will show you in just a moment. But also, we've been doing the fair marketing pretty much the same for for probably 20 years. But we have a new marketing person. And so last year it was his first year. And we wanted to do the same thing that we'd always done because that was working, but also really then add a lot of new things that are very specific to digital, over-the-top television, and adding different marketing elements that we had not done in the past. And in 2024, it really worked. We saw our social media engagement go up by 117%. So this year, he's really doing a lot more digital and social, but also pumping up some of that traditional advertising. And I'll show you that in just a minute. So here's our new Washington County Fair logo. They will tell you all about the symbolism of the wheel represents the Ferris wheel, and the gate being free is an open. I see it all, I suppose, but I really love the new colors. The blue in Washington represents the blue sky we always seem to have during the fair, and the county pink is representing cotton candy, which I absolutely think is pretty fun. So you will see our shirts this year at the fair are going to be blue and pink with this great logo. Traditional advertising, we're on all the typical radio stations, news stations, electronic outdoor boards, but we're really leveraging some of our attendance figures and things that we're doing now all of a sudden instead of us having to buy a lot of advertising, we still have to buy a lot of advertising, but we're using that leverage to actually get a lot more free traditional advertising that we haven't received in the past. Lots and lots of 15-second commercials in and out of news. So we're really excited to see how some of that works. And then we're really upping our paid social media. A lot of it's been very much organic in the past, haven't paid a lot for it. But last year we dipped our toe into paying for social media and it really paid off. So we're going to be doing more of that. Lots of stuff in here about SEM and geo-targeting. Not my quick, but I'm assured that that is all very important information for our marketing. And over-the-top television and CTV is for cord cutters. So for those of you that if you don't have traditional cable TV, if you do Hulu, Amazon, Netflix, we have over-the-top television marketing that goes into all of those, which we hadn't done before. So that we're told it's over 300,000 of our residents have cut the cord and are not using traditional television and radio advertising. Same. So we're doing that differently this year. So we're excited. Exhibit programs. We've talked a little bit about that today. We have the first weekend, which is open class, and that's when we will have our open class animals, which is goats, primarily goats, lots and lots of goats, sheep, goats, and beef cattle our first weekend. And the sheriff's posse will be here on the first weekend as well. But our second week, which starts on Wednesday, is when we have 4-H and FFA. And they'll be in the barns. But also the really exciting thing, and I'm pleased to announce it today for the first time ever, even the Fair Board hasn't heard this yet. 4-H has a new 4-H agent who is absolutely wonderful and has decided to move all of the 4-H exhibits to the Wingspan. The Wingspan, as you all know, is beautiful. It's got great air conditioning. It's got multimedia abilities. And over 67% of the attendees to the fair walk through the Wingspan. So they decided to move out of the Cloverleaf building and into the Wingspan. And they've been working with our marketing team and our operations team to design their whole new layout in the Wingspan, and it is going to be really cool. We've already got Channel 12 scheduled for the opening morning with 4-H to show off their new space and all the new things that they're doing. Because they will have more space in Wingspan, they're going to be doing more make and takes and a lot more community engagement. So please come by and see them in the Wingspan. They are still going
Point
to...
of clarification, because you know the Wingspan like the back of your hand.
Yes.
So will 4-H and FFA be in the rooms? Whereas then there's the exhibit hall.
So the
which-
vendors will be in the expo hall like they always are. But our big conference rooms, which have been very not used during the fair, they've been used a little bit by our open class, which is the quilts and things. But there's 3 empty rooms of that conference room, 13,000 square feet that has not been used at all during the fair, and they're going to take up that 13,000 square feet.
Mhm.
We are very excited. They are very excited. Some 4-H people and FFA people have been around for a while are cautiously excited. So they're a little bit nervous. They've been in Cloverleaf for a very long time. But Cloverleaf is still going to be used. They're calling it the Cloverleaf Clubhouse. Because of the hot weather that's projected and some of the hot weather that we've had in the past, the kids need a place to get into the shade, out of the heat, and also sometimes just get away from the public who are asking a lot of questions. So that's turning into a clubhouse where they can go and they're going to play board games, get cool, have lunch. It's where they're going to have the breakfast is being moved into the Cloverleaf building in the morning. And it's really just going to be a place for them to gather. And then they can put their show face back on and go back out into the barn or back into Wingspan to showcase all of their exhibits to the public. So we're pretty excited about that as well. Open class, again, first weekend. I already went over that. Program registration.
Wait.
Yep, go ahead.
It's not that I have a question, but rather I want to be able to absorb it. So that's
Sorry.
all.
Sorry. So open class livestock is opening weekend. Like I said, is beef cattle, Pygora goats, and sheep. We do not have dairy cattle this year. We only have dairy cattle every other year. Every other year, the Dairy Goat National Show is on the same days as the fair.
Wow.
So every other year they are with us. And so we usually have about 300 dairy goats. So it'll be significantly less goats in the barns this year. So we will miss them, but they will be back next year. And then in the Wingspan, all 10 days are our open class. We call them community competitions, which is culinary arts, creative hobbies, horticulture. And new this year, apiary hobbies, which is beekeeping. So the Washington County beekeepers approached us and asked if they could put on an exhibit and a competition for honey, candles, and all things
Oh,
um, beekeeping. So they are going to be with us this year. We are very excited to have them.
Do they leave their bees at home or do they?
No, they are bringing in a beehive exhibit.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I know, we're very excited. So thank you for having me go back on that.
Yeah, I just think the fair is the most amazing community event. As you said, it's free, but for folks who are looking for staycation ideas, especially, there is something for everyone, all different times of day.
So one of our taglines you'll see in our marketing when you see it this year is last year it was celebrating 20 years of free because it was our 20th anniversary of free fair admission. This year it's we're still free, but it's free every day, every time for everyone, and really we have something for everybody all the time. Okay, program registration. So commercial vendor and concession applications are now open on our website. We are actually just closing concession applications. We are now full as of last week, so we don't have any more concession spots. And our commercial vendor booths are almost sold out. We only have a couple of those left. So those will be closing here very shortly. Community performance applications, we still have lots of spots. So if you know somebody that's in a band, if you have family members that they are in a gymnastics team or cheerleading or whatever, we have spots on a stage for our communities to perform. So please direct them to our website. Last year, we had a Glencoe High School's mariachi band perform as a community performance, and it was one of the most popular. People stopped our information booth and raved about it. So they will be back this year. But it was very exciting.
They were amazingly good.
They were amazingly good, and they will be back this year. So, but it's a great place for people who are not paid entertainment to still get to perform in their community to the masses, to lots and lots of people. And then registration for the community competitions in open class livestock and Future Farmers of America began on May 1st and it ends on July 1st. So if you know anybody that has made a quilt or makes something or wants to enter their honey from their honeybees, please have them register on our website, bigfairfund.com. Oh, entertainment preview. So our featured entertainment this year, Super Science is back. In our Growing Grove, which is our children's and family area. Super Science we always think it's for kids right up until I walk by and I see a bunch of, adults in there playing with the STEM games and doing things. So it's a great entertainment area for kids of all ages. Play Fit Fun is an entertainment action zone where we encourage kids to get busy and move their bodies and tell them why it's important. So you just ate a corn dog, it's great. Now we want you to run through this area, check your heart rate, how many steps did you take, to really be conscious of kids being fit by a play. Brad's World of Reptiles, everybody knows Brad's World of Reptiles. They are back there in Wingspan again this year. Very popular. Brad's Reptiles has been with us since 1990. They've been around for a long time. The Birdman, I assure you, he is not a man that is a bird, but he is, for those of you that have ever been to the bird show at the zoo, it's an educational bird exhibit. They bring falcons and buzzards and all sorts of cool things and fly them through the crowd and do education about birds. And then the Flying Royals is a trapeze show we've been trying to get for about 5 years, and they're finally coming to the West Coast, so we got them, and it's a really cool. In fact, I have photos. There's the Birdman. And then here's the Flying Royals. So we're really excited they're making a West Coast tour this year, and we are the first one in Oregon. Then they will go from us to Deschutes County.
Well, that's a lot of setup there.
Yes, it is. Yeah, we're really excited about it. And then on our main stage, we've got live entertainment or something on the main stage every evening. Because of where it's located in the fair, it's in the sun all day, so we don't do programming during the day. But in the evening, we've got, when it starts to cool down and that wind starts to pick up and it's so nice, the main stage has lots of great entertainment. So we've got Nashville star Ned Ledoux on opening night. And then the other ones, this is in no particular order. We've got Arena Rock Gold, which is a tribute band, and then tributes to Keith Urban, the Allman Brothers, Queen, and Journey. 2 movie nights, Outlaw Mariachi, and Conjunto Alegre, which is a very popular band out of Portland. and then Ned Ledoux, and our movie night. So our first movie night is a Wicked sing-along. So you get to come along, and it's a sing-along event, and we're encouraging people to dress up as their favorite witch. So we're hoping to see a lot of pink and a lot of green for our sing-along Wicked night. So if you're an enthusiast of Wicked, please join us. And then our second movie night is Minecraft, which I'm told a lot of little kids are excited about. And then we have lots of other things from an entertainment standpoint. Our Tap House stage features all-day live music. The Growing Grove features daily family shows, and then we have strolling acts throughout the day. And here's a couple of our strolling acts from last year. You'll see Big Fair Frank. He's our mascot. He's out all the time, but we do have different strolling acts all the time. And that's it.
And do folks go to Big Fair Fun to find the schedule for each day and
Yep, Big Fair.
which nights or movie nights?
Yep, Big Fair Fun for all the details. It's starting to come online now. I think all of our entertainment stuff is up, and we're just starting to get the 4-H schedule loaded. So all the details can be found at bigfairfun.com. Also, the list of carnival rides is on the website. That is the number one question: is how tall do you have to be to ride the carnival rides? So we direct them to the website now with all of the heights that you can be to ride the rides. It used to be we were having to try to tell people what those were, so now it's all on the website.
And so how popular is the Lost and Found booth and the Lost Child booth?
So the Lost Child, we don't actually have a Lost Child booth. I don't know if I've actually ever.
Lost parent booth.
Yeah.
So we enacted about 5 years ago in partnership with the Sheriff's Department a wristband system. So we ask you, and you know this, to wristband your kids when you walk into the fair. We have almost no lost children anymore. And if they are lost, they are not lost for very long. Those wristbands, I had a little boy walked up to me, he goes, "I'm lost." And I mean, it was just like that. He goes, "I'm lost." And I flipped it over, called his parents, reunited in moments. And they were like, "We didn't even notice he was gone. That's how quick it was." So
That's a lot.
yeah.
Knew where he was.
My
So-
favorite kid.
And the sheriff's department walks around and sees if kids don't have wristbands, or some kids take their wristbands off. They wristband them immediately right there. So it's a really great program, and it has dramatically decreased our lost children. The lost children used to be in our office, and many years ago, when my children were very small, and I'd walk in there with these lost children, it was like I would just be so emotional with all these lost children, and we just don't have that anymore, which is wonderful. But the lost and found. People lose a lot of stuff at the fair. Hundreds of cell phones, lots of car keys that people never come back for. Yep, I don't know how they get home. I don't know how they get home. Hundreds of one baby shoe.
Well, that I could.
Yep, one baby shoe. Some little kid kicks it off, and it's lots of one
It
shoes.
won't fit in a month.
So we do post a lot about if you were missing something, please call. We likely have it because our janitorial crew is constantly picking up items. Lots of items obviously fall out of carnival rides when they're flipping upside down. So they pick up stuff every day. So if anybody loses anything, likely we have found it.
Well, if I might, to our fair board members, thank you for serving. A couple of questions might be fun to hear about. What do you enjoy about the fair, and what do you enjoy about being on the fair board, or that you want us to know about either one of those?
Yeah.
I'm newest to the fair board, so I don't know what that looks like, but I have attended the fair since I was a child, and I think ice cream is amazing. Dairy Women's ice cream, that's amazing, and just the community. I like to support the community. I like collaboration. So I'm excited to be here.
And his credit union, Jason is the vice president of First Community Credit Union, and they have already signed on as a sponsor for the fair. So thank you.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it being such a popular community event, I love being in the community. I have been for the last 30 years pretty intensely. So being part of this and being part of the 4-H when I was a young child showing rabbits, it was very important to me to be part of this great thing that's been put on for 10 days. And I wanted to be part of it. And, it's been enjoyable.
Great.
Especially when we feed the 4-H children in the mornings. You talk about some amazing kids that are being taught how to be leaders with that leader, from the
OSU.
Oh, if you extend.
Yeah, that was amazing. Just watching that, because when I was in 4-H, it was nothing like that, but it's definitely elevated us for the children. Wonderful.
Great, great.
I have a 6.5-year-old great grandson. And the Growing Grove really caught my attention in the last couple of years. I love the animals. I love doing the pancake breakfast. Not too many people know this about Gary and myself.
Oh, no.
We normally don't like to bring it up.
Sorry,
but
we're out of time right
we
now.
are blue ribbon holders.
Not grand champion.
Grand champion blue ribbon. Sorry, Gary, but you might want to elaborate on that.
Oh, yeah. And those are, we've got them framed. They're in the wingspan. If you want to see them, they're in there. Just kidding.
And who provided the animal that you two have claimed?
So the story behind that was Bill Banker brought all of his cows one year, and we were hanging around with him, and he had people showing everything. He ran out of people to show the little ones,
Which were still bigger than you two.
which were
Oh,
still
yeah.
bigger than me. They hurt when they step on your tennis foot.
Yeah.
Even, but we had a lot of fun doing it. The kids loved it, and then we started getting requests to go show other animals with the kids. So it was a good thing for the fair board. It was a lot of fun. We of course left Jerry out. It was just
So the kids did at that point really, they wanted to show with the fair board so they could show the fair board up and, showing us.
Then we had other animals that would like us to show them too. So it became a thing to show Bill up, because Bill brings in the cleanest steer. What he brings in is he brings in the white steers, the
yes.
Chilois, and he doesn't bring in the dirty ones, the brown ones, because they're just filthy. He brings them in. For me, it's all about the kids and the relationship with their animal, and just sitting down talking to them, how they raise that animal and what they're doing with it in there. And then when you find a love for the animal, it's almost tough to see them have to give it up and to go to auction and to deal with that. But then they realize it helps provide something else, scholarship money.
Yeah.
And so it's the monies that come into play. And so between 4-H, FFA, those kids are just amazing on the products they do and the animals. And especially, I mean, we're thinking about the small animals too that we don't see a lot of, but the cavies, the birds, the turkeys. And so we see that.
Sunday mornings at the fair are tough when the animals that went to market, they have to say goodbye. It's pretty rough.
How does the Washington County Fair compare to other county fairs around the state?
So we are the second biggest county fair in the state of Oregon. Actually, we're probably
By
tied.
attendance or by animals or by carnival rides or?
So generally it's by attendance, and with that kind of goes with everything else. So we're the only 10-day county fair in the state of Oregon. The only other 10-day fair is the Oregon State Fair.
Yeah.
We're just slightly smaller than the Oregon State Fair, and then Deschutes County, which they are bigger facility wise, but they are only a 4.5-day fair. But they have rodeo, and we don't have rodeo. So I always say if you've seen one county fair, you've seen one county fair.
Yeah.
They're all different, but we're one of the biggest ones in the state between us and State Fair and Deschutes. And we have great relationships with all the fairs. We're part of the Oregon Fairs Association, which, by the way, the Oregon Fairs Association convention is being held at Wingspan this year. I will be sending out invitations to all of you. It's a great convention. There's a lot of legislators, a lot of board members, a lot of county commissioners throughout the state will be attending. But it's great to have relationships with all the other fairs. We share a lot of knowledge. We share a lot of partners. We route entertainment. We share even the bad news, like, hey, this vendor, stole equipment from this fair. Like, don't book them at your fair. So there's a lot of collaboration from all 37 fairs in the state of Oregon. It's a great small network.
How could there be 37 fairs if there's only 36 counties?
State fairs.
State.
36 state, or 36 county fairs plus the state fair. So a total of 37 fairs in this.
Like does Multnomah County doesn't have a fairground in
They
it?
don't have a fairgrounds,
What
but
do
they still have a fair. They rent Oaks Park,
Oh, that makes sense.
but they are still a county fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Colleagues.
I'm just impressed with what you shared about last year's fair and attendance and engagement and, um, what you all are collectively doing around marketing and making sure people know about it. I can tell you that's working. My 17-year-old daughter would be the opposite of a 4-H child, and she ended up at the fair 2 days last summer.
Love it.
And I think that's great.
Me too.
Without me being involved, I should state that. It tells me your marketing is working too.
Oh, that's a great story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. My daughter is older, but she was just recently at the mall. I don't go to the mall very often, but she said she overheard some younger girls in a dressing room saying, "This is my outfit for the fair this year."
Oh,
And I'm like, "Oh my God."
That is very similar to my daughter ending up at the fair 2 times.
well, so back to the 10-day fair. I remember a few years ago where you were wrestling and, well, let's try this.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
are you really glad you did it? And want to
Oh, yeah.
stick to it?
Yeah, going from 4 and then going right into COVID. COVID was supposed to be our first 10-day.
Yeah.
Couldn't beat 10 days. And
Yeah.
so there, and then the next year throwing out the 10 days was beautiful. It went very well.
Mhm.
It was a chance to allow more animals.
Yeah.
We can't get all the animals into a 4-day fair.
Yeah.
And so you're saying no to a lot of the kids that are raising animals.
Yeah.
And we don't say no to anybody now.
And from an attendance standpoint, our former sheriff wisely said to me, "If you are full in the parking lot, aren't you full on the inside of the fairgrounds?" And we just couldn't fit any more people in safely in 4 days. And it was great because lots of people wanted to come to the fair, but we just couldn't put that many people onto the property safely. So spreading it out over 10 days, it did exactly. I will say the fair board was very wise all those years ago to say, yeah, let's do it because we needed to get the lines down in the carnival, although we still have long lines, but and really just be safer on the property. And it also gave us a way to make more money. I went back and went down a rabbit hole a few weeks ago to see, because we used to lose money at the fair, and we lost money for many, many years. But now that we're in the 10 days, we have more days to make money, and just our financials are a testament to that 10 days.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
Just-
part of losing the money were the big acts, bringing in Clint Black, bringing in some of the others out there.
Yep.
You don't make money on them.
Yep.
Does having the 10 days allow you also to have a little bit more flexibility if a couple of days are really hot?
We do adjust. And I mean, this year, the same thing. If we get certain temperatures, we're not going to open up in the evening at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. We'll kick it back, and that also means that we'll stay open a little bit later. Instead of closing at 10, we'll close at midnight.
Yeah.
And we do that in conjunction with the sheriffs to be able to make sure they're going to be able to staff and keep us safe. So,
Yeah, the 10 days really does provide that flexibility. So 2 years ago, when the opening weekend was 106 degrees for 2 days, but then the temperature went down for the next 8 days, we made it all up in volume. When on 4 days, if you have 3 hot days, you can't make it up in one day, so the 10 days really adds that. But also, it was a number of years ago when it was 116 degrees. I know we're about to run out of time. We changed our hours. We changed to start later, not early in the evening when it was still so hot, and stay open a little bit later. It really does. It just offers a lot more flexibility from a weather standpoint as well.
Great.
Hope you all stop by for a pancake.
yep.
I don't know. I don't usually try to get out that early in the day.
I'll do a special
I could
smiley
show
face.
up.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be too verbal.
And since last year, Elmer's works with us, and so we get Elmer's pancake batter. Instead
That
of
is so
making
handy.
our own,
Yeah.
where the consistency is never the same. One batch to another, we use Elmer's, and it's just beautiful. It's perfect.
Great.
Yeah, Elmer's donates that, so we make sure that we
Not to be
give them kudos for that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
We put up their sign. No, Bob will put up anything you want in reason, as long as it's legal.
And that's even questionable.
Is there anything else for today?
That's all we had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank
bet.
you for all of
Thanks
your
for coming.
support.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's hope for
Sorry if
great
you put
weather.
him on the board.
Well, we can handle in almost anything.
The abuse is equally spread around.
That's the,
We've been abusing each other for
Long
almost
time.
2 decades.
Yeah.
2 decades,
long time.
yes.
And now it's on the record.
Ta-da.
Okay. Well, thank you again. That'll be it for the annual joint meeting of the Washington County Board of Commissioners and the Washington County Fair Board. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I'm sorry I was late. I went upstairs.
Not a problem.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Good luck this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll just take
Thank you, Commissioner Willie.
Absolutely.
and
Happy
then
to serve.
to our next topic. Thanks, Leah.
Huh? Who are they? Good. Good. That's the city. We'll deal with it. Yeah.
Hey, Kathy, feel free to come on up. You and Aaron. Oh, Joe, you're here too. And Rick? Ah.
You just like.
Joe.
But nobody else is.
I just wanted to make sure there was enough set up between the joint meeting with the Fair Board and whatnot, so. Whenever everyone is settled, we can get started. So just by way of preference, we had our, this year, two days or 1.5 day really of budget committee meetings for the Clean Water Services budget. A good budget committee. I want to really once again compliment everyone for the good questions and to the team for the very thorough answers that we got. I mean, there wasn't a question that I threw your way that didn't come back with just a spot on answer. So thank you very much. We had discussion at the budget committee with regard to the proposal for the generally semi-annual or annual rate increase of 4% and wanted to come back to that as the full Clean Water Services Board of Directors. So that's the context for today's conversation. And so we'll turn it over to all of our subject matter experts. Rick, is there anything that you wanted to say to help kick off this topic as well?
Well, I would like to thank you for all the questions in advance. So it made our jobs much easier to know, where the specific areas of interest were. So that was really helpful. And I do appreciate your kind words. I felt like the team really stepped in and did a great job. We look forward to presenting some of the options today and anticipate more homework to do afterwards based on your feedback.
Okay, terrific.
Well, thank you, Chair Harrington and members of the board. I'm Kathy Leader, CFO with Clean Water Services, and I'm here today to talk about rates. clean water services. And you can't talk about rates without talking about our forecast. I wanted to start out and just give you the premise of the forecast and the basis of our rate development. The district maintains a 10-year financial forecast, which is updated annually. As part of this process, we evaluate the need for rate increases or debt issuances to cover planned capital investments included in the district's capital improvement plan. The district develops the annual budgets and financial forecasts in alignment with the financial strategic direction established by the Clean Water Services Board. This has resulted in the building of reserves over time to fund large capital projects and extraordinary expenditures while avoiding the need to spike rates. The district's strong financial position has resulted in a AAA rating with Standard & Poor's and AA1 with Moody's. As part of this upgrade reflects a strong management practice. And within that, with other items listed with the rating agency that impact your rating, one key thing that stands out to me when you talk about financial forecasts is with strong management practices, track record of regular rate adjustments and well-developed 10-year financial forecasts and capital improvement plans with reasonable assumptions. They're updated annually and provide the board with a clear trajectory of rate increases necessary to meet revenue requirements. So in looking at our forecast, we're going to thumb through some different examples of different rate options. When you look at our forecast, these are some of the assumptions that are in there. They're on the screen now. Right now, our forecast includes a 4% annual increase for both sanitary and swim rates. As we talked about for the 25-26 fiscal year, that results in an average household bill for CWS of $2.65 per month. That would be effective on July 1. And if you looked at that number annually, that's $331.80 annually as an increase to an average household customer. For the forecast itself, when you're looking at it, materials and service costs are included with an increase at 5% per year as you trajectory out in future years. This is based on historical trending. Personal services is also trended out at 8%, also based on historical trending. So we've looked at how our actuals are coming into play, and we roll that out into our future years. The plan also includes our capital costs that are based on our 5-year capital improvement plan, which incorporates our master plans and any of our replacement needs. And an additional adjustment that we do when we're looking at assumptions and forecasting is we look at trending of actual spend for the budget. And so the forecast actually shows recent trending that reflects a 90% spend on budget for departmental operating and capital. So we adjust our rates in our forecast for that too. So those are the assumptions as we move into then our analysis. Before I talk a little bit about this revenue forecast and fund balance, I want to talk a little bit about the budget on the expenditure side. First, we'll talk about expenditure as we go into these rates. The approved budget reflects a $7.5 million increase or 5.7% increase in operating costs compared to the prior. This increase relates to like 4 added FTE. It relates to year mid-year adds and redesignations, COLA, pay for performance, insurance costs, PERS costs. And on the supply side, it takes into account energy cost increases, software cost increases, increases also in our billing with the other cities. Now, with particular TVW, the bills for us, along with Lake Oswego's contract that we bill with. These are all compounding expenditures that happen in this year and are going to move forward. And those are those compounding expenses, the revenues that we are projecting, they're there to cover those compounding expenditures with increases annually on the budget. So when you look at the graph for you there, this is with the planned $75 million bond issuance. And you look at the impact. So the blue bar is the 4% annual rate increase. The solid bars going in order, highest to lowest, show the impact on revenue with a 3%, 2%, or 0% increase. And the dotted lines are then showing you the impact on reserves. So cumulative revenue reduction, but also reserve reduction when you look at the different options. So on a 3% rate increase, that has a cumulative impact of 17.9 million over that through fiscal year 2033.
So that's assuming we stay at 3% each of those years,
So that's
or just the cumulative impact of a 1-year decision?
just a 1 year. Thank you for clarifying that, because that our forecast does include 4% year out after that. So yes, that's 1 year, 3%. A 2% increase would have a cumulative impact of 35.8 million. So that's reduction in revenue over time and reduction in reserves.
But again, same concept that the chair just said, it's a 1 year, 2%.
1 year, 2%,
And 4%.
4% in out years based on our current forecast. And at zero, that would be 71.7 million over that same time period, and that is also a reduction in reserves for the district. And that's with the bond sale. I also show it here also without the bond sale to show you obviously the cumulative impacts of a rate adjustment are the same whether you have the bond issuance or not. So those stay the same over the different scenarios. However, the overall reduction in reserves because there was no bond sale in 2033 is about $39 million less in reserves. You don't do the bond sale. And the reason why it's not equivalent to the 75 is we've been making debt payments on it over time that adjust the amount. And as you remember from the approved budget, the capital investments are planned to increase by 42.7 million or 41% compared to the prior year. This graph is showing you the forecast for combined sanitary and surface water CIP projects from 2026 through 2030.
Kathy, could you run that statement by me again?
Mhm.
That the capital improvement budget, I didn't hear it correctly.
For 26, what we're proposing?
Yes.
So the capital improvement budget for 26 is 42.7 million greater than the prior year. It's like a 41% increase over.
How many percent?
41% increase.
Okay.
And then this is showing you the 26 through 30, and that's stacked of Sandy and swim projects over the time.
And I think through the budget detail, you reminded me that that was driven by both the East Basin master plan that we had and finishing out prior projects that were in that 5-year CIP.
Yep. And then also West Basin is coming into there, and any renovations.
Or yes, looking out the future.
For it.
Yeah, 5 years. Yep. Thank you.
Historically, the district's capital program averaged 50 million per year. Capital investments increased starting in 2024 at 81 million. So that's actual 81 million in 24. And as you can see from this graph up here, we're planning another 396 million in the following 3 years. And those increases, you're looking at things like Ripple, some permit required construction at Forest Grove, pump station needs. And when you look further out, even for 3 years out, our average capital has increased from that $50 million level to now we're on average 100 million a year. And you see in there some of the West Basin, some of the conveyance projects in those outer years.
Partially a question that I have now that I didn't have previously because I just didn't think about it. Our region has grown, right? And Washington County has been the primary area for UGB expansions over these last 10, 15 years. Have we reached a tipping point then? You've helped me appreciate that the system is, over 50 years old and you have to replace those systems. But also we've had South Hillsborough, Cornelius has had expansion, Forest Grove's had expansion, Beaverton's had expansion. It just seems like the number of housing units has continued to grow and grow. And you don't just build capacity on a straight line. There are these, I imagine there are these inflection points. And so I'm just wondering, historically, you had a CIP in the $50 million range. Are we just going to see it mostly in that $100 million range, both because of the scale, but also because the scale of construction costs?
There's a lot of factors that will contribute to that number. Definitely the growth and the scale, but the level of treatment technology continues to be an important factor as we're doing our projections and understanding what the needs are going to be and how those stricter limits are going to impact us as well. So that everything you mentioned is correct as a piece, but I would just add that that's that one other unknown that's out there a little bit.
No matter how much I learn and increase my knowledge each and every year, I always benefit from the reminders.
I mean, what I'm getting out of this slide and from your comment is like, we're not going to be headed back to the $50 million a year capital investment time anytime soon, if ever.
I would say that's definitely correct.
Okay.
The
That's important for us to keep in mind, I think, as we're thinking about the big picture here.
And so when you're looking at the capital spend, to me, you can see that we need rates in order to invest in this capital growth and just operations.
So the capital growth has escalated quickly on paper.
mm-hmm.
What were the factors that were we waiting to do things? I'm having trouble understanding why the big leap.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for instance, like the lab is a much needed project that and some of that's based on technology and new requirements for testing, and so you see that happening on the treatment side too. New requirements, new and higher, more expensive answers to those questions.
I'm sorry. I was just going to add, the lab is certainly one of the factors here, but a copper limitation at Forest Grove required us to build primary treatment, which was $50 million. Again, that's shocking to me. I would have guessed 25. Things have gotten very expensive, so that is not a gee whiz high tech
Increases. It's the degree of cost.
It's also the degree of cost. So even a pretty basic process that's been around is quite expensive.
It's like such a shock, and I'm trying to make sure I understand all the different pieces. And it would seem if we had this big shock, I would have thought that there might have been a little lessening, but it doesn't appear that way moving forward.
I think the rebound back is 100 million for the long term. Yeah.
So I talked in the 26 budget, we've proposed a budget issuance of 75 million, really to meet some of these large construction projects, in particular because we saw some large projects that are generational in nature and the potential of spreading that cost over time instead of existing ratepayer. We also thought it was a good time then to look, if we were going to go that route with these larger projects, to look at our Build America bond, the 2010 Build America bonds that are outstanding, see if we could refund those at the same time so we could mitigate some of those exposure to federal dollars on that program. So and when we look at our forecast, we do plan out for bonding as we see projects tick up. And 2 years ago, we had it in our budget too, and we looked at it at the time. The market wasn't good, and we were able to, with sequencing of capital, not issue the debt at that time. So once again, we would look to the market, see what's going on. If we decided we wanted to go, we'd bring that forward for approval, and then we'd also would look at that refunding with the 20 bonds.
I am really at first when you were talking about the $75 million bond, I just didn't have a feeling for the level of thought and consideration and analysis that you had done. But by asking questions and hearing you speak about it more has really helped me appreciate the level of work that goes into these major financial decisions. So thank you for your patience.
So this slide shows the average monthly rate per household for the combined center sewer and swim rate for 26, based on the scenarios of 4%, 3%, 2%, or 1% rate increase. So you can see there, at 4%, it's $67.65. Annual increase of $31.80 for an average household. 3% would be $66.95 a month, or $23.40 annually for the full increase. 2% at $66.30 per month, annually impact of $15.60, and a 1% increase of $65 with $7.80, excuse me, per year for the household. When you look at that, the difference and variance by increases, it's small in relation.
Yeah, that comes through. Quick question about how you defined average household, because every program is different. Do you just take the general cost over the number of households and do the average that way, or is there a particular characteristic?
Yeah, and under our current billing, so it would be a single family residence, so 1 EDU, 1 ESU, and for the winter water 8 CCF. That's what we use in our system average. Although as
8 cubic.
It's like 750 gallons a thing or so, approximately that. It's
cubic.
I'm surprised it's that high though.
You know, and I think our
Than...
yeah. So when we looked recently, I believe it is under the 8 at this point, and so actually the impact to a household would be less than that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's calculated on 8.
These examples are 8.
And they're consistent across.
Right. So we get the percentages.
Yeah. Okay. At some point in the conversation, and I've just thought to myself, I'll wait till the end, but I also want to have the reminder of if we don't go with, well, both if we go with the 4%, how that maintains flexibility moving forward, but also if we go below that 4%, what are the risks and benefits? It's risk and benefits to everything. And so I would benefit from that discussion after we have this complete recap.
So this is just showing you the average household monthly rate, sanitary and swim, at a 4% annual increase from 26 through 33. So those are what you see in our forecast.
And one of the things that I gained out of reading the full CIP and sticking with it and really trying to understand each of the explanations, and I learned a lot. The number of pumps and fans, it's the movement of material is simply amazing. The mixing and whatnot, that demands power. And you look for optimizations everywhere. How can we take advantage of the heat and use that elsewhere in the process? But it helps me appreciate how over the course of time, we have to look at what this volume is going to cost me now versus into future years. I'm probably on average still flushing the toilet the same number of days, taking the same number of showers over the course of time, year over year. But in order to manage that material, it just takes energy. So thank you.
So these are the rates that are currently in our forecast. And they're the basis of when we look at CIC spend and debt issuance. We are right now in the process of finalizing our cost of service study, doing that allocation of costs between the two utilities, Sandy and Swim, and also the regional and local component. Once we have that completed this fall, we're going forward, then we get collecting EDU information from the cities and calculate new rates. Those will be the basis then of our new forecast going forward.
So we need to put that on the work plan to take us through and appreciate the learnings from that. So for our CWS rolling agenda set.
And we definitely, once we have those allocations and the rates, we'll be presenting those to the board and to the cities for transparency.
Thank you.
So this somewhat speaks to Chair Harrington's question with regards to impacts when you don't do the forecasted or planned rate increase. So the 10-year annual average increase in combined sanitary sewer and stormwater management rate is 3.5%, as you see here, over between 2017 and 2026. So that includes the 4% increase planned for 2026. So this has been in line with inflation, which has been at in that same time period at 3.3%. This trending reflects the district's adopted policy of reasonable rate increases on an annual basis to promote predictability for the customer and revenue stability for the district. And the district provided rate relief in 2021 in response to the pandemic. And a planned rate increase of 3.38% was deferred during that time period. Based on that deferral, the district projected rate increases several years ahead in the forecast and had implemented. And we had planned that increase would actually. So when you looked and you didn't do that deferral, and you plan out, we were thinking before we did the deferral that our increases were going to be about 3.8% going forward. But when we saw this trajectory, we were thinking it was going to be more like 5.5% in our forecast. However, as we sequenced labor adds, sequenced capital, we were able then to go in and do just moderate adjustments in 22. We bumped up just about 4.5%, and then we're able to trajectory down to about 4.13% over the next 4 years. So we were able to bring it back on track. But now what used to be an average 3% increase is now more like a 4% increase, and in the future could be a 5% or more increase, in particular if you do adjustments related to the rates in any given year.
So you always have to watch it.
And this is the one you've seen a few times, but it just reiterates the blue line is Clean Water Services, our joint sanitary and storm rate over time compared to other local water utilities over the past 10 years. And the comparison shows how significant capital investments can result in the need to spike rates to cover debt and capital investments. The district has built reserves over time to help stabilize rates and avoid spikes to meet capital investment needs. Final slide I have for you today. This is showing for the 25-26 budget projected revenues based on a 4%, 3%, 2%, 1%, or 0 increase. And it's showing you just the rate reduction in that year. And we talked earlier about that cumulative impact. So I would just say at the 0, it's a $7.5 million adjustment to revenue in that year. 1% would be 5.6 million, 2% 3.7 million, and 3% 1.8 million adjustment to revenue.
Okay, so I'm not sure what slide to reference per se. Perhaps the rate revenue and fund balance one. Because what I'm thinking about is you made study investments in the East Basin Master Plan so that we have a better idea of how growth will be accommodated, how that affects the Durham treatment plan especially. And then with the West Basin Master Plan, I was impressed that the size of West Basin is bigger, but it touches on Rock Creek, Hillsborough, and Forest Grove, and also includes that's where more reserves are land use wise versus there's still UGB expansion. Well, there's capacity within the recently expanded UGB, say in King City and still in the River Terrace areas, but those have been considered with the East Basin Master Plan. So what I'm wondering about, Rick and Kathy, I'm assuming you'll be the two experts to help me get my head around this. Um, I can see how this 5-year CIP master plan has all those considerations in them already. And the West Basin master plan will be bringing more in to be programmed in. And so that's where, when I look at these possibilities of not going with the 4%, I'm then beginning to think, well, wait a second, that may involve risk that we can't keep up with development needs that exist. And so I'm really feeling ahead of my skis here, that while it may feel comfortable from a customer experience, for the longer term, it feels risky to me. And this is where I appreciate, Vice Chair Treese, that you've been advocating for us to go back and take a new look at the low income program and so forth. Anyway, I'm blabbing on about things I'm asking for help on. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, a couple things. In not doing the rate increase, it would we would sequence projects then. So we would have to make decisions about priorities and spending on projects. It also could be that we issue debt, and it might be then at not as favorable an interest rate, depending on what our rating related to it. So yeah, those would be key things we would look at.
And can you remind me when we have new permit phases? We've been in, wasn't it like a couple of years ago?
Yeah. I think we're about 18 months from our next permit renewal. But we're already 18 months, I believe.
About 18
from
to 24 months.
Today.
So it comes in the middle of 27, 28, or?
Yeah.
Oh, so this graph by itself, if we're already there, I drew an arrow between 27, 28, and then, and then went 5 more years out, and we're smack dab between FY 32 and 33. Okay. I hadn't thought about that. Those are the unknowns.
And one thing to take away too from this particular graph is it's showing that even with, so 1 year, no rate increase, 4% in out years, you're showing on that very first dotted line, our reserves are down to operating in that year.
Okay.
I'd like to bring up a question, and maybe, and Jason, if I can just
Sure.
put this out there for us to talk about. It wasn't that long ago that we looked at this forecast and said, this makes sense. And I think the impetus behind talking about these different scenarios was generated around the situation that we're in from just
media presence,
a media presence, of public perception,
optics.
all those things. So I'm just trying to say to myself, okay, if that hadn't happened, if we weren't there, would we just be signing off on a regular 4% increase that we had previously agreed to?
I would be.
Yeah, I think I would be too. And so I'm trying to weigh the value proposition here in relationship to what we had said we were going to do, what we were planning for, and versus what we gain here. And I think it's important to have that discussion and as part of moving forward, because I know several of us have said no rate reductions, 2%, whatever. And I just want to frame up why we're even here today with this discussion?
Let me offer a little bit of an alternative or a thing to consider with that. And I want to challenge us as a board and frankly the leadership team to think about what it would look like to try to get on a long-term trajectory that would be sustainable with a 3% increase. Part of why is I think 4% compounded over the long term is really challenging for people, even with a program to support lower income folks. And I think 3% is something that in the long, so part of me saying that is to say, I'm not saying don't make the capital investments. It might mean we have to innovate and do things differently. It's a way of pushing the team, both the leadership team, the operations team, to think differently, figure out how to operate incrementally a little bit more efficiently, and then therefore be able to deliver a sustainable, what I think is more of a sustainable long-term rate of increase. And I would be much more comfortable with that. As I thought about this, let's just do, the sort of criticisms from the public that, hey, you're all obviously spending more than you need to. That's been in the media. You should not authorize any kind of a rating. I mean, these are all sort of public comments we've gotten. You've all heard them. There's certainly pressure from some spaces to do that. I'm not typically moved dramatically by those things if I don't think they're the right thing to do. I don't think that 0% is the right thing to do when I'm looking at all this information, but I have to be honest. In the long run, I don't think 4% is either. And so I guess I would just say, I would feel, maybe I'm issuing a little bit of my own personal challenge to the team to think differently about, could we, if it were going to be 3% and that was a long-term trajectory, how would you run this business differently? Yes, you might have to face projects differently, but can you innovate 1% out of the cost structure every year in a sustainable way to deliver that more, I think from an individual perspective, more sustainable rate increase trajectory. So I'll just offer that as a thought.
I guess I would also say that a lot of work went into looking at the projections around 4%, and I would, I don't know what we're buying with a 1% change, but I like the idea of
Compounded, it ends up being significant.
No, I understand when you look at the graph out long ways, but I also think that we need to look at, I framed it up as what's the media presence, what's our, what are we hearing from the public and their constituent reports, that type of thing. I also think that we need to be looking at the decision that we made on that 4% over time. We didn't have the information that we have today about costs and some of the other pieces that would have me asking, is that enough? Based on when we made these decisions, we weren't faced with some of the issues that we're faced with today with inflation and those types of things.
What would the leadership team think the kind of challenge I proposed, and maybe you need to think about it more, but what's your gut reaction?
But could we switch back to, slide 8? So if this is telling me looking backwards from 2017, 18, 19, the rate increase wasn't at 3.0%. It was in the 3.
Correct.
Yes.
So we've been.
I'm issuing a more aggressive challenge. There's no doubt about it. I'm asking you, what would you, if that were a parameter you were given, what would you do? And is it possible?
Yeah, I would look at sequencing the capital priorities there. I would look at debt issuance and how you structure that to push some of that over time rather than direct rates. And we would develop a forecast that would include that in and see what it would look like.
You're not telling me it's immediately unworkable.
I think in the near future it is. I think in the
Unworkable
like
or
in the near future, so when we had some preliminary numbers come out of our cost of service study, they did show some larger rate increases in the first few years out and then leveling out to 3 in outer years. And it was really in relation to those capital projects. So I do think there is some rate impact that will come from these projects, but there is an ability to level that out. And you can level that out through capital project and debt.
If we go to slide 5, it's because we have this higher level of capital intensive, right? She's talked about how we have these two particular capital intensive years. And so we've got a bit of a double whammy here, where it looks to me like there is a need, but your challenge makes sense when I look further out in time.
Well, and I'll be honest, I have a little bit of trouble given what I know about the organization and how it's been operating, to think that you cannot innovate 1% out of your cost structure. I'm having a little bit of trouble with that.
I think we always love a challenge. So what we need to do is explain what that means in terms of deferrals. So we can defer things. What tends to happen if you defer over a long period of time, if you're not keeping up with your asset and your renewal and replacement and where we're at, there's ways to quantify how your risk might change. So we can get to that point. We don't have that answer quite yet.
And I'm just one person.
We would like to give that information. I think that's, good stuff to talk about. I will say this, as far as the innovation, our rates, we do have that chart where we compare our rates to others.
Yep.
We are at the bottom of the chart. The only place beating us does not have our limits. So I don't want to back away from that challenge at all. That's in our DNA.
But you think you're doing a pretty good job.
But I want to point that out, that I think if we weren't innovating today, we should be the most expensive on that chart in some respects. You could argue that. So I think it's important. I think we have the right now the tools to do that type of innovation, and we can continue to look for those opportunities. I think there's efficiencies internally and operationally that we can also be looking at, but the way costs are increasing so much, and just some of the potential regulatory pieces. But we should look at it, and we can do that. But I don't want to paint too rosy of a picture without giving you the information to understand what the trade-offs might be. And what we don't want to do is end up having to spike those rates.
I should be clear, I don't want that either, and that's not what I'm suggesting.
So I guess what I would say is trying to go the direction that I think everybody else is. We're not going to let the tail wag the dog here and make a decision that's going to cost the organization $7 million to respond to public outcry. At the same time, when before this scenario happened, what was the complaint that I heard from very, very few? Because I mean, the taxpayers look at their bill, they don't understand their bill. They blame the cities generally for their bill rather than seeing that it is two different organizations. And so that's part of the public relations that we need to get beyond. But it's headcount and, quite frankly, CEO's compensation. So if we begin to deal with what we hear as the complaint rather than reacting to a negative situation, then I think we're beginning to address the issue. Okay, because if we look at that chart that Diane provided, I guess, for the budget process of headcount growth over the last 5 or 6 years, is pretty doggone significant. And then we're gonna add 4 more this year, and I think part of your challenge at the budget meeting was, it's a 2 and a -2. The net sum 0. We're gonna reduce operating expenses by 2%. We're gonna give you a 2% bump. What does that look like? And I think that's part of, but also I'll throw one more thing in there, and that is our reserves. And every one of us sitting around this table says we got to have those reserves. We're not going to reduce those reserves, because we can see from that, looking out into the future, we got to have those kinds of reserves if we want to maintain and sustain the system that we have. So, and I think that's part of our responsibility as a board, to be able to communicate. No, to justify, we need those kinds of reserves to do this.
Because people relate that, like that situation in their own personal life. That'd be like the equivalent of someone having $5 million in their checking account and then going and taking a car loan to buy a car. Like it does not compute, is I guess what I'm sharing. Like it does not make sense to people that you would do that. But
But
you've got those size reserves.
But they also don't understand what it costs to maintain this system. I mean,
Totally. I don't think they're
that.
comparable situations, but that is how individuals think about it.
So yeah, I think we got flex in here. I appreciate you pointing that out, Jason. But yeah, I think we got some flex that we could do in there and not be showing the kinds of decline that we're showing in that particular one, or even worse, the one where we drop below the next slide.
And that's with no bond issue.
Yeah. And so that's a situation that we don't want to go to. So we got to find something in there that I guess is actually fun, but not be too punitive.
Do we know the cost impact of, and I'm really talking in generalized terms here, of an affordable rate program? Do you have any idea?
No, I mean, that's a big.
Well, we've been over this.
Yeah.
Over the last 4 years or so.
Right.
And what we had difficulty with is that there would be, we're subsidizing from one area to another. And it really felt that we were getting ourselves into a fairness. So we should take a relook at that topic. I'm not saying necessarily that exact information, and engage, because if on the drinking water side, if there isn't an existing low-income program, then why are we looking at it on the sewer side by itself? So that thought hadn't occurred to me back when we were talking about that topic years ago. So I think it's worth relooking at for sure. Another idea that struck my brain over the last couple of days is that we have all this combined billing, and so any of our community communication, we're lucky to have it, right? And so I thought, maybe one of the things we should think about doing is every household has a postal code and a post box. So what if once a year you have a CWS mailing, just like the cities do for their different community programs? Our community program is, we're going to tell you more about clean water services. A little bit of the education part, a little bit of, this is not just waste treatment, but there's a lot of pipes and pump stations and whatnot, stuff that we totally take for granted. And it would just, that customer contact just would become part of our normal operation. So, maybe we need to make some changes, you've been trying to do least cost approach, right? Social media, leverage where people are. But maybe we just have to think about the fact that just being out of sight, out of mind isn't good enough. And whereas in prior decades, we could look at smaller percentage of changes over time. I think one of the phrases we heard, it sounds to me like from the prior graphs, whereas we're in the 3% range now because of the level of complexity, technology, and everything, we're in the land of the 4s. Whereas we would be in the land of the 3s before. And it's just that inflection point of complexity. And it's a lot to get my head around. I don't have a problem in challenging the organization to try to innovate and whatnot. What I have a problem with is the timing of that. I would much prefer to have the agency have the opportunity to incorporate that into future plans versus disrupt the things that we have underway to make sure that we're able to continue to perform under our current permit and lay the building blocks for the next successful 1 or 2. So
I think
more study needed.
I think leaders and organizations step up when forced to figure things out. So I don't want to leave the organization in a difficult position, but I do think that sometimes innovation comes and creativity comes from the tension of being forced to figure it out.
And that's
I'll
what
leave
we
it.
did with the cost of service study too. There are some things that we still have underway that we haven't necessarily had the opportunity to go over with you as a member of the board. We have some things that have been underway for a year or 2 that are still in progress. I think we've got to spend more time to sync up on those things.
I think that any adjustment to the plan rate will definitely have an impact on the future rates that we would propose to meet the capital program.
I don't know, Jerry, where do you think you ended up?
Well, I'm kind of looking at numbers here. So our budget, our operating budget is $200 million. I can't remember what the real numbers are, but it looks to me like here it's 200 million. Is that what that means?
139.
139.8.
In 27.
And so
When you forecast, when you're looking at 2033, that would be about 220 million. It
okay.
doubles every 10 years.
Okay. So, but what that says to me is that we got $200 million in revenues coming in currently projected, and that's with the 4% increase. Okay, which equates to about $7.7 million. Okay, so and we're spending 140 and then there's this 90% spend versus 100% spend, so it's 10%. So anyway, playing with all kinds of numbers, we're actually adding to our capital fund, but then we're spending that pretty rapidly. So there's a contrast there. So okay.
Yeah. And debt service added into that.
So I guess I'm still going back to what Jason said at the budget meeting. What if we cut that 2%? What would that look like? Well, 2% of 140 is 2.8. So what would a 2.8 reduction in operating expenses look like? We give you a 2% rate bump, your net sum 0 theoretically, okay? And we don't lose ground
In one year.
Yeah.
Next year, that's not in our base any longer. And the costs have gone up.
I get the multiplication, right?
Yeah.
You and I had this
Yeah,
conversation, and I acquiesced, you were right and I was wrong. So, okay?
Fair admission.
Did I just hear you propose 2% cut in your operations and a 2% cut in capital?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. 2% cut in operations, a 2% increase in rate, which is
Huh? Yeah.
theoretically is a net sum
Well,
zero.
down from 4%.
Right? And that allows us to maintain our surplus for capital projects.
Yeah, but you'd have to cut heads for a 2% operational
Yeah,
cut,
you would,
like in 30-day notice.
yeah.
And not,
I don't know what that looks like. That's all I was asking.
and we also
And I
have Teamster
presented that
labor
as
agreements.
a conceptual way to think. I think it's a helpful way to think about the overall long-term financial position of the organization and how to balance budgets with rates. And
Well, because we're looking at the 4%, 3%, 2%, 0%, only at the top line. Or that's just a revenue side of things. We're not talking about, well, what if we reduce
Correct.
expenses to help offset?
well, that's the point I was making with the 3%. Like, what would you do to?
Yeah, when you look at the head count over the last 5 years, that might
Been very
suggest
slow
that
growth.
there might be some in there. Well, Washington County, we have reduced $99 million out of our general fund budget over the last 5 years, whereas you guys have significantly, well, I would say you guys, Clean Water Services has done exactly the opposite.
The board's been part of that.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The board's been part of that.
But I also think that it's been very planful on the county
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
And there's been a long horizon with an understanding of what our budget hole is going to be and being able to adjust for that. And even with that horizon, it's been tough. So I'm suggesting that for an immediate decision, I don't think that for this next rate increase, you can just cut like that because we're not prepared to
No, if we
address
did it
the
this
issue.
year, we'd have less savings going into the
Right. Now, I'm
savings
not
account,
saying
so
that
to
you
speak.
couldn't look and balance on a forward-looking basis, but I really would not be comfortable with doing it right now.
No, I would agree, and that's a very good point. This is too short line for talking about a reduction in headcount, so I get that.
Mhm.
But maybe looking out into the future, certainly
Maybe it's the right challenge for a year or 2 or 3 out.
26, 27, maybe be looking at that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't like thinking that a decision we make today though has a $35 million impact over this time frame. I don't like that either. So
So what it tells me is that it feels to me like a 4% rate increase is the responsible thing for leading into this next fiscal year with following up on evaluating a low income rate program, looking at we've got to be able to, as a board, better understand what gains we're getting. And this is in addition to your following up on the $75 million bond. It's not lost on me. There's work there, okay? But being able to articulate what achieving this level of CIP investment for 25, 26, what the level of CIP investment is for 26, 27, beyond saying, well, it builds out the East Basin Master Plan, and it means I have to read a one pager, right? And understand that for this chart, it's XYZ. For this bar, it's ABC, right? You've also done a good job of reminding us that the West Basin Master Plan is in the horizon, and we have a big improvement in technology for the lab, which works on, a huge level of samples every single year for the current permit, and really taking a look at how we set up certain budget principles and priorities into future years. And I also, in having a conversation with Rick last week after the budget meetings and leading up to today's meeting, Clean Water Services has been a premier utility, operation-wise, but also science-wise, and it will be useful for us to think about future planning scenarios and what effect that has not only on financial flexibility, but permit flexibility and science flexibility. And I can't characterize it any differently than that.
So I want to just be clear that I'm comfortable with trying to, I don't think a 3% decision this year and signaling that we want to plan around that for long-term sustainability. I don't think that means we have to cut FTEs this year. I think it means a little bit less money going into the savings account as we're getting ready to spend capital down. I'd like to see that. I just want to share with the other 4 members of the board that I may vote no on a 4% increase just because I would prefer to see that be the approach, and I just don't want everybody to be surprised by that.
But I want to say, like, the challenge you offered to the staff, I think that's worth challenge for you to go back and do that homework, because when I review this material to prep for this meeting, you really do, again, do a good job of telling the story of why we need this 4%. That's not lost in any of this board members. So you do a good job. There's the public perception. We can't ignore that because the 5 of us are elected by the public, and what they say and what they request matters to us. But that doesn't mean we do not insist on the responsibility upon us to the district. So I want to support the challenge Commissioner Snyder offered to you all to say, go back and see if you can finagle something and come back. And if the answer is no, we'll do our due diligence and we'll still, insist on our responsibility and vote accordingly. But I think it's worth for you to take that challenge and come back that story of what a 3% looks like without reduction to staff.
And my challenge is a little different than that.
Well,
it's what would you do? Like, how would you make it work if that was what you were given? Not does it or doesn't it, but what would it look like? Unless you literally say this can't be done. But I don't, given the numbers involved, I really doubt that's the answer.
The hard thing for me to answer is the impact in the future, as we're so close to having that cost of service study and the new rate development there. It's going to have a lot better answers and the ability to plan out some of these capital.
So the timing
is not the best.
Got it.
Correct.
Criticism received.
But I like your idea, and I hope that we can.
And this is only the second phase of that cost of services study. It's built off of the first phase, and from a board perspective, I don't feel like we got a lot out of the first level of the cost of service.
I would agree with that. We need
So,
the second version.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were informed about what it was, but in terms of how it could help us with business positioning, I mean, it was a foundational piece. And now, yeah. But I also have to disagree with you on the timing, Commissioner Snyder or Director Snyder, that we can't enter a proposed fiscal year this late in the game and say, oh no, we're gonna do it feels like a switcheroo on me, as opposed to looking, when we look at the fiscal forecasting for the county's budget, we're doing that in October, November, December. And look at gaps then. We don't do it, the week before the budget adoption.
To that point, I was going to ask you if you would think about if we were to stay at 4% this year, but give direction to budget process for next year to be flat or a reduction, so that we can
3% trajectory would be what I would be trying to target.
Okay,
for the
but
long
what I'm
We
saying,
haven't been operating at 3% for a very long time.
and
I
I'm
know
saying that
that's a good challenge. Figure out how to innovate.
Well, we may not be able to reach it, is my point. We may
my
be in the
point was
3 range.
my point is to build it into a process
Yes.
where we accomplish what you're talking about with in a manner that isn't a little head chopped off, kind of running around trying to find the pots of money versus doing it in a thoughtful, planful way, so we can look carefully at what the relationship with capital is, what the relationship to the operational side is, but it would be in our direction opportunity to say that this is what we want next year.
So we've got more than $450 million in the savings account right? Generally speaking.
Doing utility reserves policy, not government reserves policy.
So $450 million in the savings account, and the 1% difference for next year, if the rate increase were 3%, would be
175.
okay, 1.75 million. Okay, so I think that's important consideration here, like to put it in perspective.
And you're suggesting take it out of reserve?
Well, that's what the net thing would happen, is there'd be a little less money put into the capital, into the capital account, is what would, that's the net impact.
Without touching the operating side.
Yeah. I mean, that's what would happen unless there's other adjustments made. I would suggest the team be figuring out if they can innovate so that you do get the money, you do get that into your savings account ultimately by not spending it on operations. All this money is put in, my understanding of the way the budgeting is done, it's all put in, it's all in one big account, so to speak.
By fund.
So how about if I suggest, how about just to add to your 1%, 1.75 thing, we freeze 4 positions.
Freeze what?
Freeze the 4 new positions.
I don't want to be that directive to a brand new acting CEO. I mean, to me, innovation to the team means figure it out. Maybe
How critical's the 4 positions?
Well, they're proposed. They're
30.
Yeah, come on. I think they're proposed. They've been thoughtful. They've been planned out. I think it's pretty arbitrary at this point to say.
I was asking the question.
And I mean,
I just don't want to.
I didn't ask you.
I want to give the leaders flexibility.
So pull out your budget file on your computer and do the search. Could we step back on reserves first? Because I'm still trying to understand your proposal. On page 117 of the proposed budget, it lists out the 4 funds that make up the reserves. The liability reserve fund, the sanitary sewer capital replacement fund, the surface water management capital replacement fund, the sanitary capital reserve fund, and the surface water capital reserve fund. So what you're proposing is to reduce overall out of all of these funds cumulatively $5.6 million. So still move forward with the full CIP and the full operating fund, but fund those things out of a dip in reserve for 1 year. Did I hear that
I think it's only 1.75 million total.
I don't know where you get your 5.
That's all That'd be between all four of those.
All four
I
percent
took-
seven, man.
I took it off of slide 10.
Oh, yeah, 5 point.
Oh, I see. No, that was a
1.8.
full 1% increase as opposed to it's 1.8
Yes.
million.
Yeah.
But that was your proposal.
Well, I'm just making the point that like on a $450 million overall amount of money that the public would say we're,
Yeah.
you know, we have in a savings account or more than one, multiple funds. We're talking about $1.8 million.
Mhm. So, I'm trying to understand just in general what that kind of reduction in the reserve might introduce.
That's the 1.8. It's so if you're talking about adjusting the revenue side
Mhm.
in that 1 year,
Mhm.
that 1.8 is 17.9 million in 2030. So it has an impact.
I'm aware of that.
Over those years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it might be easy to find, or utilize some of those reserves the first year, but if you're talking about continuing to utilize reserves to meet that over time,
Oh, that's where the challenge comes.
what happens if there isn't that to be found?
You go back to 4.
Then we got to reevaluate that. But
Mhm.
I don't think unless you are like, why has the county organization had to get the way it has? It's been forced to.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be realistic about it. It was forced to figure it out. I'm suggesting there may be a similar path here that's maybe less painful.
I mean, I'm committed to, as we go forward with the cost of service study and look at the rates, I'm committed to find cost savings in there. And if we can develop a plan that in out years says at 3%, I'm for it. But we need the time to plan that.
Sure,
and
I get that.
identify the optimal staffing and capital program.
And that's where I'm coming from. Yep. Because what you're describing is a different financial scenario than the way we've been operating. That's all.
True.
My mind is open to that.
Just not right.
But
Not at this moment.
Turning on a dime,
Yeah.
no. It's the when do you incorporate that? And if we go back and look at the work session learning days that we've had over the last year, we weren't engaged for the budget planning and the financial plan. So, we'll be redoubling our efforts, essentially. The other point I wanted to come back to was the point on public perception. Public perception is not homogeneous and not monolithic. So, yes, there are a few people, some people is the word I've been using, the phrase, that have expressed concerns, but there are a whole lot that haven't, who trust and whatnot. So I'm trying to make sure that in my decision making that I'm able to be thoughtful, not disregarding those concerns, but also don't just have a knee-jerk reaction. That's all. So in terms of overall next steps, I think with where we are, this proposed budget only has an increase of 4 very specific FTE with the capital needs that are very well documented and the operational goals, and we can re-review those together. We have the low income program, and we have a desire to come back and make sure we establish the budget process overall and what level of scenario planning we want to go through, as well as things that are in the works already, the cost of service study. I need to look myself at the latest billing information as well and see what people are able to glean there. And I think we're going to have to invest a little bit in more community understanding of what they're getting. in these monthly bills.
So what I'm hearing is we have a projection, that graph that shows the changes over time. What you would like to see is that's assuming the status quo. So you're challenging the team to develop efficiencies and savings. So if we do a reduced rate, we don't actually realize that reduction in reserves.
Correct.
We don't have that.
Correct.
We don't have that hypothetical on there yet. And that is something we would like to do. We're happy to do. It takes a little time to give you that information, but I understand that. And I think that's a good approach as a way to look at it. We're not locked into losing those reserves if we're able to find some innovation and efficiencies. So that makes sense to me. My preference would be I think the FTE question we've talked about a bit, so I'd like to just address it for a minute. I do believe we have some vacant FTEs. We have some vacant higher level FTEs. We have some ideas on maybe we don't need some of. So rather than say don't do those 4 for next year, I think we can look at what we have overall and likely do as good as what you would see long term in terms of FTE costs for this initial year of those 4 folks. But I would want to go and look at the whole picture. Would be my ask. Is not to give me the number. Give me a number.
This is why I don't want to lock them into.
Yeah, I think I can find the best use of the FTE budget and the ads, and we've got thoughts and ideas on that already. And
we also had, as a board, visibility into weaknesses on the administrative side that we need to look at. We know very well from Washington County experience what it means to keep ignoring the administrative side.
So where are we from a messaging for regards to the budget that's going to come forth? So what have you heard, Kathy? What are we going to do?
Well, we're going forward on June 17th with our proposed rates and charges that are included in the plan document at this point, and the approved budget, and the approved budget coming forward for adoption.
Okay. Will it be separate items?
Yes, so they'll be separate actions.
Still a very lean budget, has only adding in 4 new FTE, which I think is a historic low over the last few years. Has also a whole bunch of reductions with regard to administration of the food and travel expenses as well. So, yeah, I think there are some compares and contrasts compared to prior budgets.
I guess I have to ask a question, Jason. You heard what we're going to be brought forward is a 4% fee increase for 4 new positions. I heard you say earlier that you're not sure you could support that. So it's very important to me that we have board consensus. So
given the discussion that's happened, I don't think consensus is realistic at this point. But I'll have to think long and hard about it, but I probably would not support the 4%.
So what would you support?
3.
Okay.
With the challenge.
Okay.
And knowing that there may be work that's done over the next year or 2 that would move my thinking on that. I mean, I'm not someone that doesn't learn, can't take in new information or learn things. I hear our soon to be new acting CEO indicating that, he thinks there's ways that there may be efficiencies that are available. I think that, to me, I'm making a $1.8 million decision in this space, not a $17.9 million decision, because we will be making decisions every year and we have to react to conditions and what's going on. And so that's how I'm approaching it. But if you must have a 5-0 vote, I don't know that you're going to get that.
We don't have to have a 5-0 vote. It's always,
Well, you,
Good.
you wanted consensus.
I love consensus. Yeah, that's why I asked the question. So
I understand.
I think I'm actually leaning your direction up to 3% versus the 4%. So I don't, now I'm conundrum
I just think that's irresponsible at this stage of the game.
to do a 3% versus 4%.
Yeah, at this stage of the game, you bet.
We're talking about this for a month and a half. Kathy has known for at least a month that the 4% was in jeopardy.
I mean, some people were giving messaging to you that it could be 0%.
Be 0.
I know that because I was not the only one who made that comment.
Yeah.
So it's not an entire surprise, I guess.
That's right. It's not a surprise.
Just that over the course of a year, I don't think this is responsible fiscal planning. That's my point.
Well, I think we better come to a direction that we are in this work session to give staff at this point in time as to what we expect them to bring so that this thing doesn't implode on delivery.
Sounds like it's 4. I mean, what I've gotten out of the conversation is that they're going to bring 4%.
Bring forward,
I think
okay,
we,
so
I think we have the opportunity to ask. Rick mentioned earlier, and I thought I saw heads nodding, that there might be some high level opportunities that you could identify that could help us look toward a 1.8 without going to capital. Am I right about that? And that information could come to us before the 17th. Am I right about that? Or no?
That'd be fast.
I know it's fast.
FTE savings. It would be FTE.
And it would be unfilled FTE positions. Is that what you're talking about?
I think it would be more multi-pronged than just that particular.
Or what?
I think it would be more multi-pronged than just the FTE to get to the full 1.8. So what I was suggesting was there was 4 FTEs added. That would not be equivalent to 1.8.
Yeah.
That I can off the top of my head rattle off some things that I think we might find some efficiencies at that level. So I wouldn't want, but I did not mean to state, oh, we've got 1.8 in FTEs sitting there ready to roll. We'd have to look for some.
actually what I heard, Rick, I'm sorry, is that I think you have over 40 vacant positions right now.
We do.
And so that seems that there might be some squeeze in there rather than the 4 that we've got. So we add the 4 and we squeeze the rest. We'll take that 1.8 out of there or something like that. But that's the kind of messaging that I would like to have come back. I'm tending to agree with Jason on this. I'm not sure I can go with the 4, but I can go with the 3 and some of that offset.
I don't know that we would have specific positions at that point.
No,
In 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I know, I don't have that expectation, but
But do you have to submit a proposed budget to the state?
But what we would do if we came back and we did the rate hearing first and then decision was made to do it at 3 rather than at 4, we are committed at the district that we would work within that dollar amount in that impact and looking at, like we have in past, of sequencing capital and sequencing labor. I think that's what we do.
okay, that's great. I can deal with that.
So to the chair's point as well, we've had a plan in place and agreed to this 4% ramp, if you will, over time. So and I'm thinking, okay, why now? What is the impetus for the reduction of 1% at this point in time? And is it public? It's fine if it's public perception. It's fine. I'm just trying to figure this out.
For me, this is the first time I'm being involved in that conversation. So
Okay, well, so
there's a little bit of a timing thing for me in that too.
so I understand that you haven't been involved in the past discussions but 4 of us have been.
Yep.
And I'm not diminishing your viewpoint of 3%. I understand that. I'm just trying to get my head around a change that we've had in place for a while in a quick manner when we would have the opportunity to relook at this over the course of at least a year for further discussion. Now, that doesn't mean that we couldn't taking into consideration public perception, a 3% for 1 year, with the understanding that we were going to go back and revisit all of the plans that we put into place for this 4% increase over time. Because I'm frankly really uncomfortable with just abandoning what the strategy has been and in this moment. And while I understand that, Jason, you come to the table and say, I think we could squeeze a percentage point out of this. Okay, but what was this made up of? So
let me ask you a question. Do you know more about the level of efficiency and operations of the organization now than you were a year ago, as far as how efficiently the organization is operated? Because that's a major consideration for me.
That's a fair question.
I may have had a different opinion if I were you a year ago too. Like I may have had a different thought.
That's a fair question, but I think my impression of efficiency within the organization is highly colored by a flare-up of events that we're dealing with at this particular point in time. And I don't want to be overly influenced by that based on the strategy that we put into place over time. So yes, I'm frustrated with efficiencies.
I don't want to be overly influenced by that either. I'm giving it small amount of consideration.
Okay, so all I'm saying is I could go with 3% if the understanding was that this was to address the current issues, and we would come back to the discussion about what quantified the 4% increase over time, and how does that compare if we were to move forward with a 3% reduction?
They're a viable path.
So I'm saying I'm not comfortable throwing out the work that, again, 4 of us have been involved with over time, as well as staff here, frankly, and a lot of staff time. So, but I am willing to think about this. I'm just not willing to jump to a steady state.
I didn't suggest a steady state necessarily.
So maybe I didn't understand that I thought when you said 3%, you were looking toward the future of a 3% ramp.
That was the challenge. Like, what would it look like? Is that possible? But I am not immune to new information or deeper analysis done and looking at, the group coming back and Mr. Shanley, if he's in the role at the time, saying, or whoever's in the role saying, this really isn't workable and this is why. I have, given my experience and what I've seen, I find that a little hard to believe, but I would believe it. I mean, if that's what is coming back a year from now.
And what goes into my decision here or thoughts here is also the comments that Rick made about the fact that we are, in the scheme of things, a low rate provider.
Yeah.
So how does that influence what our strategy was? And I think it did to a great deal. So I'm just saying that this picture that we're looking at is just in time, and we need to really go back and look at our strategy and why we looked at this increase in terms of our capital investments, as well as what our ratepayers were absorbing.
I mean, if I didn't say what I said today, we possibly wouldn't be having a conversation about whether there could be more
No question.
financial innovation or cost.
No question.
So, I mean, to me, I think the board has an obligation to do that.
And I also think that we have an obligation to remind ourselves why we did do what we did.
I think there's actually more going on here as well. this board has never before been this engaged on the CWS budget. Okay. We currently have 20, 40. We have almost 50 unfilled positions across the agency as of March 31st. So we've never had information on what the unfilled rate was if we take a similar org chart from 2 years ago, what has been the change in terms of unfilled. So I'm still back on the what if there was a reduction in reserves. Your previous answer was yes, it's 1.8 this year, but out, further years, 5 to 7 years, it's this amount of money. Well, we're stuck in the here now today. Forget what the cost of it is in the future. What I do appreciate is that the agency has taken a look at the current operations and identified that there are 4 additional positions that are needed in order to position the organization successfully. Could those 4 positions be accommodated through these almost 50 unfilled positions instead of increasing FTE? I don't know that because I don't know if that went into the kind of thinking for putting together this proposed budget, right? Or not. So it goes to one of our board members talking about the ZBB method and really taking a look at what does it take to operate year over year, and can there be some additional efficiencies? My mind is totally open in terms of scenario planning, but I don't think we had the level of engagement a month and a half ago on the budget that we do now, or even when the articles first started running at the end of March. And so that's where I'm concerned about potential disruption or continued disruption where we've already got it in the workforce. I'm concerned about our retention rate on the current workforce, as well as the impact. It's one reason why I dove into the CIP this year much deeper than I did in my prior years of review of the CIP. And part of that's related to the East Basin Master Plan coming through to us as well. So it's not that I can't get to what something in the 3 range might be, but going from a full 4 to a flat 3 when we've been in at least the 3 ranges for a while is concerning to me. I just want to make sure that the organization, the leadership has had a chance to go through more scenario planning than it has been. So, if they can accommodate it through operating out of some amount of reserves for a year, and identifying a way to solve the need for the required 4 positions through that business case, it's really hard to pull that out of the current budget through searches right now, by the way. Then maybe I could get there at a 3%, but I don't have that information today. But we do have an approved budget with a 4%.
Though there was a lot of discussion at the budget committee about that and the fact that we were going to be having this discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So now we have, so, who would like to take another crack at making a proposal, that because right now we're on a track for the adoption of a proposed budget with 4% June 17th. Is there an alternative that you would like to spearhead?
I will at least propose for the sake of discussion that we make a aspirational goal for the future of 3%, which means this year the rate increase would be 3%, though it would need to be reevaluated and plans and thorough analysis like the chair is asking for be done between now and next year to figure out whether there's a way for that to be the long-term path or not.
Can I add?
Sure.
And that the 1.8 reduction in fees from that 1% that would not come out of reserves, but be looked at in
Wait, are we trying to define something for the future? Or are we trying to just, I'm trying to get a proposal on the table where instead, we have option 1 right now, which is the proposed budget that was approved with a 4%. As well as are doing things differently that we talked about before with a budget process, low income program, and looking at the 3% ranges for rate increase.
Long term.
Yes. But I heard you speak a minute ago about doing something short term, but then you said it was long term, so I'm confused.
No, it was not short, it was not long term, okay, and maybe I should have just stopped with.
No, I was pointing at him.
I know, but it was my addendum that messed
Added.
things up. The 1.8 million that is impacted by a 3% versus a 4% does not impact a reduction in reserves. We just stop there. You guys figure it out.
You don't want to see it cause a reduction in reserves. That's what you're saying. You want it driven out of operational costs.
Well, turn it over to them.
Yeah.
I will say with that we definitely could find some savings, but I couldn't guarantee we wouldn't use reserves because of the capital program in the spend that we would do.
Well, no, the capital program is going to reduce reserves. I get that.
But how do you say which one?
Which one was the effect?
Which one did it?
Which one?
That 1.8 we found, we lost it already then in the capital program. I guess the only thing, right? I guess you show at the end of the year, okay, the adopted budget was this, and this is what we spent. And oh yeah, it's less than 1.8. So yeah, we found savings.
Jerry's making the point that dollars are fungible, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just want to say we're going to reduce reserves because I can't guarantee that in the capital spend we have in this year and next. Just
the reduction of reserves has to be focused on the capital spending, okay, not on operations.
He's the right. Commissioner Willie. Director Willie.
Sorry.
Wait,
Done now.
Didn't you just switch? You went from it has to be out of capital and not out of operations.
No, I did not do that.
Hmm.
I said the reduction a year from now in capital reserves has to be as a result of capital projects.
Okay. So what does that do to this year's? What is the direction for a second scenario for this year? That's what I'm having difficulty with.
What are you hearing, Kathy?
that we will need to look at our operating budget and find some savings to make up 8 million.
That's what she said.
So that the rate increase this year would only be 3%.
Correct.
And can you do that and have a proposal for us to adopt? We somehow have to have a public hearing on this too, don't we?
I guess my preference would be you would adopt the rate first and you identify that you're gonna do it at 3%. And then you adopt the, approved budget and we commit that we're working towards saving in the environment.
And adopt the approved budget as the budget committee approved budget because we just reduced the fee income by $1.8 million.
So all you're appropriating in a budget is expenditures. So we would just go in and make sure when we work through and we could even go in mid-year and do an adjustment to the budget and reduce revenue too.
Okay. Well, you know what we want. So bring forth, Kathy. Okay.
I mean, this is just what I proposed. It sounds like you're you're seconding it. Or...
Well, I'm agreeing with you.
Okay.
We don't have a first or second here.
Yeah, you can't make decisions.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Brad. Good. This has been a long conversation.
Kathy and I have discussed whether you have.
Come on up to the table.
Kathy and I have discussed whether the budget committee has to come back, and we don't think so. It would only be if you were increasing the revenue in the budget, but decreasing. Technically, there's nothing in the statute that says you'd have to have the budget committee come back again, talk about it. And it's just like Kathy said, we just have to come up with reduced expenditure throughout the year, and it may be just a budget revision, mid-year budget revision.
I will be comfortable on with a couple caveats, and I think I've already outlined what they are, but I'm going to reiterate that, and Chair pointed out that we would be moving forward with the low income program design.
Well,
That's
with it bringing to us to then approve.
That's what I said,
We
with
need
the
that.
Given
design.
the direction, yes.
We need that no matter what.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's in there. The other piece is that I agree with, I think I agree with Jerry that it doesn't come out of capital.
It's hard for her to get that.
But I also do not want, where I might disagree, is that this, from my perspective, does not supersede the plan that we put in place last year unless we revisit that plan or the previous year. So we had a strategy for a 4% ramp, and we had all sorts of pieces built into that. I'm not saying that that can't drop to 3%, but I think it has to be done thoughtfully, and it has to be done with board input.
I think that's what we're
That's what,
asking them
that's
to do.
exactly what
They
Jason
said they can do that.
Okay.
So what they told it, yeah, because this is consistent with the budget committee as well, because we asked Kathy, what if we approve the budget today, right? And she spoke about it being expenditures, but what if the board decides to pick between 0 and 4%? And her response was very simply, then we would have to spend it out of reserves. So what that was coming out of the budget committee, what you've said here is proceed with the capital. So hold capital at this level and see how, but approve a 3% rate, but see how through either keeping positions vacant, not proceeding with the execution of the 4 approved position, you can come up with the 1.8 million in savings.
Yes, and that we are not committed into the future to a 3%. We don't adjust the overall plan, that we have to come
No,
back.
we're only
every year.
making decisions for one fiscal year.
We can
That's
do
what
that
we
for
do
one
every single year.
Well, I understand that, but I want to make sure that we revisit the work that was done previously and look at adjusting that as well. So that's another piece of work.
The future discussion about 3% is just simply aspirational.
I don't understand what that statement means.
Is it possible? What would it look like? What does it do? Future
We
discussion.
need a whole budget process that engages us. So what we've said is bring us one scenario that's only a 3% increase. That's all that is.
I think Kathy understands what it is that we're asking.
I agree.
And that's,
But it's not a statement of philosophy is my point.
I think the getting to the plan that is being described would be based on a philosophy.
We
possible.
we have processes that we've used every single year for board principles, board priorities. We've never applied that on CWS.
We definitely
And
should.
we've never had a rigorous budget process with CWS. And I noted that previously for us to create one.
so I've stated my concerns and my agreement levels.
I have a question for you. Would that be clear in the budget adoption process? Because all the materials have 4% now. So how do we?
Yeah, we would definitely,
Blame.
we would change all of the narrative related to the rates in there, because that's the, basis of the rates and charges of the year that we didn't do the work. It gets complicated, but yeah, we would do that.
We would want, to your point, Nikki, so we'd want to clearly communicate what it is that our intent was here. And so we can do that.
And then
They can do that.
the budget committee, would you let them know? Like, how do we, I feel like this is the first time where, for my presence here, I would speak. This is the first time that a budget committee approved the budget. We're not making a bit of adjustments. I feel like it's the right thing to do to let them, I mean,
You're talking about communicating back to the
budget committee,
That's
yeah.
very simply done.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, and definitely.
They also fully expected us.
Yeah.
To have
That's
this
exactly
conversation.
Yeah.
None of them are going to be surprised.
Committed to that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Next
We will.
we talked about a 2 minus 2.
Yeah.
That's 0 on that. So, yeah. This will be a surprise.
So is there commitment of this board if we come forward next year with the cost service study done and it indicates that maybe we have to do a 5% or more, but it's justified, it's substantiated? Would you look at that?
Yes, look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll look at it.
Okay.
I would be challenging you all to figure out. I mean, I better be very robustly.
We're going to need
Analyzed.
to figure out some processes.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
board's going to have to commit to participate in these processes that we've never ever had before.
But good on you for bringing it forward.
Kathy, I would have expected nothing less from you to make sure that point was made.
So
Heard.
be sure June 10th to bring you new processes that you need to commit to.
Good. I didn't hear from Nafisa.
Yeah, I do. I said.
All what she was asking about was communication related, not cost.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you're going to be bringing some information back to us for us to review and be prepared for action on June 17th. Great. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
to
you.
Karen as well.
Get
And
paid
Rick, thank you.
time and a half for the last 30 minutes.
So
Worked
Willie's send us
overtime.
I know, dang it.
Just you though, not Joe.
Yeah.
Not Joe.
Yeah.
So we've been going since 1 o'clock. Let's take our 15-minute break and come back at 10 minutes to 4.
We only got like 15 minutes to go, don't we?
Well,
Only-
it seemed like a few of you still had conversations you wanted to finish versus us having to wait.
I could do.
All right, welcome back, commissioners. Back to you, Chair Harrington.
Okay, so this morning we tried to make efficient use of time, so we got through 3 of our 4 board commissioners, but then I neglected to use a note earlier, so we have one more board topic to do and then finish up leadership communication. So, Commissioner Snyder and Commissioner Fye, what have you got?
Can go. Last Thursday, I went to the Tualatin Chamber Economic Forecast. It's a key leaders breakfast, but economic conditions in the state. The state economist was there in addition to others, and I guess I would just report out from that because I found it interesting that our relatively newer state economist does not think the sky is falling and he made a pretty compelling case for that, looking at a number of key indicators. And since he is officially the state economist, I thought I'd just report that all to you. That was interesting to hear and why he was concluding that.
Did he use that phrase?
Did he what?
Did he use that phrase? The sky's not falling?
Probably. I mean, the doom loop was in there too. Yeah, he didn't use the doom loop phrase, but yeah, I mean, it was in the context of tariffs.
Yeah.
You know, is sort of the question was that he was posing was essentially like, is the tariff discussion and what's going on really something that should be causing us as an Oregon economy to be thinking the sky is falling? And his answer was no.
Thank you.
So I thought that was, and he made a pretty compelling case for that. So I found that to be useful and something I thought worth sharing. Last Thursday, I also had 2 phone calls with 2 of the 3 House District 26 candidates. I'd already talked to one of the others, so they've now all gotten even time and consideration from me. I had a prep session with the LUT staff on number of Region 1 Act issues, and so I've got some follow-up to do there. I also, just to share with all of you, I was outreached to by a Dallas County Commissioner from Texas who owns a farm in District 3. And so he wanted to meet with me in person. He comes up here every other week, I guess. I just wanted you to be aware of that. I thought that was unusual and something somewhat surprising.
Does he have a farm in Texas, or does he just live in Dallas?
No, he was an attorney and is now a county commissioner and sort of, I think, winding down his practice and is doing a little something maybe a bit more than hobby farming, but not a whole lot more.
And his farm is here in your district.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. But he lives in Texas and is a county commissioner there.
Correct.
Okay.
So just to be aware, interesting connection. And he outreached through Bryn to me.
How do you like that Texas sales tax?
Did
you talk about that?
We talked about a lot of topics, actually. Okay, back on topic here. Also Thursday evening, this was a busy day. There's a CPO 15 meeting, and one thing that came out of that I thought was really interesting and not what I was expecting to hear is that they were, and I tried to move them off of a topic a couple different times, and we kept coming back to it. So that's how big of a issue this is rural speeds now. So speeds being traveled on rural roads that are being used really as cut-throughs through. I mean, it's always been an issue on some level, and definitely see that in more urban environment too. But they were just describing that what is going on now compared to 4 or 5 years ago is dramatically different from their perspective. It got my attention. I could not move them off the topic. We kept coming back to it, and both the sheriff's office was there, and we talked a little bit about the enforcement side. But I did ask the CPO, the staff that were there, to make sure that LUT was connected into that conversation, and I think they're going to probably be invited. But I'm guessing you might hear that in some of your
we've already had
meetings
a little
too.
bit of that discussion, but I'll let you finish your 50 seconds.
Let's see. Friday of last week, I met with the Tigard Police Chief about concerns with WACA. Had a one-on-one with the chair, and then civic leaders graduation was great. Monday, I had my one-on-one with the undersheriff and went to swearing in. We talked about that. I thought Acres discussions were really helpful, and I thought that was good. I'm going to have an audit committee meeting, I think, tomorrow evening. And then Thursday, Basalt Creek Parkway briefing. That's one of the things the LUT staff want my help with, and trying to work, I think, a little bit more with the Tualatin City Council. Friday, I have a one-on-one with the PGE CEO, and then we have the House District Appointment meeting. Saturday, I'm speaking at the Lamb Research graduation ceremony they asked me to speak at, I think for a technical education program that issues a certificate. And then on Monday night of next week, I have the Tualatin City Council meeting that I'll be doing my normal rounding at. Sorry if I went over a little bit. Usually I'm under. But
CPO 15, is that the Forest Hills?
yes.
So in regards to your conversation on rural roads, yeah, the Rural Roads Committee had a similar conversation. And it's strictly because they know there's not a lot of enforcement out there. The roads are more dangerous because they're going faster and because there's just 2 lanes. And so, you don't have all the amenities of a.
There was also some criticism about particular roads that have been designated as bike trails that have no designated bike area, and people are traveling 70 miles an hour without. So that was sort of a sub critique in some places, which I'm sure the LUT staff will
go right out here at North Plains, and the bicyclists love to go up and down West Union. So they're biking from clear up, I don't know where, so all the way down West Union, heading out towards Pumpkin Ridge and going out that way. Yeah, there are bicyclists out there constantly, and it's a fairly narrow 2-lane road, and yeah, 70 mile an hour. So anyway, yeah, it's a problem.
Well, I'll weigh in here. My week wasn't that level of excitement and activity with you as Commissioner Snyder. 2 things. I have not had conversations with all the candidates, but there's a lot of people who are advocating for certain candidates, and I talked to 2 of the candidates out of the 3 of them, and had a great conversation. I think we have our work cut out on Friday. They're 3 compelling candidates, and fortunately, we only have 1 seat to fill, so I think we have our work cut out. In terms of one other issue I want to elevate was I too enjoyed the civic leader graduation. I always enjoy that, and it's just really inspiring to see certain students or leaders who went through that program who are really excited about engaging the county. So I really enjoy that program. And then also the food and it's great.
Great. Well, we have one more item that was brought to my attention on Friday through your coverage while you were out, and that is with regard to budget amendments for board members. It will be too late if you introduce budget amendments on June 17th. So I was asked to bring forward to the board that if you are thinking of any budget amendments, that you need to bring those final proposals no later than the June 10th work session, because staff needs the time to finalize documents in order for us to take action on June 17th. So, Carrie, the water assignment I got for today.
Well, I appreciate you, Chair, and I'll take that as maybe a transition to leadership, because that was the first item I was going to talk about. So thank you for carrying that. And I will note I have not heard of any budget amendment from board members. So just I want to lift that up as of note. Continuing just your governance role, adopting the budget is one very important governance piece. The other, thank you, Commissioner Snyder, for stepping on to the audit committee. The action of an annual audit is another important piece of fiscal stewardship for the county. What will be different this year is we will be scheduling a work session with our finance team and your board to talk about the audit and findings and steps that we will be taking as staff to ensure that we are upholding fiscal stewardship moving forward. So just watch for that post the audit meeting. In addition, I do want to note that your board did receive an email from Communications Officer Philip Bransford yesterday regarding our neutral non-advocacy effort to reach out to voters in Washington County about the library and public safety levies. There is a meeting that is scheduled on June 11th, 2:30 to 3:30, and I want to personally apologize that this was not on your calendars earlier than this, and staff will work to make sure that these notifications are on calendars earlier than this last minute. Also in your inbox tomorrow should be an email from Erin Doyle. The email will provide overview of known state budget impacts. This will include an overview of what we know to date as reductions to community corrections funding and also library. So please watch for that.
Law library?
Correct. There will be an ask through GR for reach out to legislatures, but wait, where staff is still actively working on this. We have reached out to all county departments to see, besides just what GR knows, what other county departments know about the budget. So there may be more information in there as far as potential impacts regarding state funding. We continue to monitor federal funding. As you know, there was an email that was sent on Thursday with Department of Homeland Security and creation of a sanctuary list, which included Washington County. As I alerted your board on Monday, that list was taken down due to several groups' advocacy. One of the groups' advocacy was the Sheriff's Association at the national level. All indications, to our knowledge, have indicated that there will be some type of list coming back. We just don't know what iteration that will come in. So we're continuing to monitor the situation. For my week this week, I will be traveling to Minnesota Thursday through Sunday. For ICMA Executive Board. When I do travel for Executive Board, since I'm leading and facilitating the meetings, it may be harder to get to reach me. However, you know that I do return calls on and text during breaks. As a reminder, ICMA pays for these costs. Washington County does not incur any of these costs. During this time, Aaron Calvert will be serving as acting, and I will send that email out.
You mean Minnesota, don't you?
You said that, not me.
Can I go back to the audit committee?
Mm-hmm.
So the audit committee reviewed the reports for fiscal year 24, and it says here that we'll be receiving those reports at the June 24th business meeting. Does the board just receive them?
We're working on scheduling you a work session for you prior to that to discuss it. Between.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Jason's gonna lead that discussion because since he's on the audit committee.
Staff will lead
usually.
it. Staff will lead it.
Yeah, my first time having
Mhm.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Roy never led the discussion, so why would?
Just trying to plug you a little bit.
He has higher expectations. Yeah, I guess.
Thank you.
Chair Harrington, commissioners, I was going to say something about I should get to go before Tanya because she stole all my thunder, but then I realized it probably doesn't really matter since this will be my last Tuesday with you in this interim role. I mean, I'm sure I'll see you. I'll be around. But just
You're not going anywhere.
so Alex can go after Tanya every week. That's fine with me. I was going to say, just following up on the federal issues, I just wanted to alert you that we also are in a lot of conversations on the legal side with not only our colleagues around the state, but also we attend a lot of discussions by the International Municipal Lawyers Association. So hearing how jurisdictions all over the country are dealing with various issues, what they're seeing. We also sometimes get some kind of early heads up about, terms or lists or the things, just the surprises that may be coming our way. So we continue to spend a lot of time trying to keep up as well, and in partnership with the county administration office, how to effectively respond. Other than that, I was just going to let you know also that in preparation for that June 11th meeting that you all, Tanya just spoke about, Miss Angie just spoke about, we will, Jason Bush will be doing a little refresher on restrictions on political advocacy by public officials for our employees, so they can also remember.
June 11th or June 12th, roundtable?
It's not at the round table. It's at the.
Oh, sorry, that separate thing.
Yes.
I didn't track.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And also, I will be doing next
Oh,
week.
that's the levies interest
That's 11.
parties
Yep.
meeting.
Yep.
Got it.
And I next week will be doing an update with the Civil Service Commission on hearing appeals and procedures, just as an annual refresher for them. So while we continue to work on the federal issues, we continue to mind the business of the county at the same time. That's it for me, Chair.
On the conversation at the roundtable June 12th on the federal coverage, I assume that since Alex will have just joined us on Monday, that you and Jason will take us through that along with Ms. Angie.
We certainly we'll certainly be sure to work with Mr. Barnett and Miss Angie to make sure you all have the information you need.
Thank you for your service to the board over the last year and some change.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and thank you. I said to you personally, a few of you, thank you for the opportunity. I've learned a lot and grown a lot, and it's been, what's that saying? It's been fun. It's not been real fun, but it has been real fun. Actually has been
a longer than you probably expected.
No, it's been an honor and a pleasure, and I'm not going anywhere, so it's not a goodbye. It's just see you in a different role.
Thank you.
Yes.
And we can always say, Courtney said we could do this. So.
Oh yeah, that'll.
Anything more for us today?
Well, I'll keep it short. So I'm on the opposite spectrum from Courtney. My first official day will be Monday in my acting role. So I've been working on transition and in particular finding the right staff to fill the roles that I'm filling today. So I'm going to have two folks, one kind of take my engineering group, those 5 groups, and then another person take over the operations side, which was formerly what Logan did, and then likely moving NSES to Joe Gall to take that piece on. So that should give me the bandwidth I need. I'll still be very much in touch with all of those folks.
And when is CJ's last day?
CJ's last day was Friday last week.
So you're still recruiting for that position?
We have an interim. Tom Stowe has been with the district many, many years. He was planning to retire, but he, I think, was very happy to have the opportunity to fill the role that CJ's been filling. So he's comfortable being the interim in that position until the end of the year. So lots of interims and actings, but also a lot of very experienced people to take those roles on. So feeling good about that. I reluctantly got an iPhone today as a company phone. I'm a Google Pixel person, and I'm trying to learn that.
Oh, I know your pain.
But I will make sure to get all of my information. I don't know if it's my email and things have been distributed to everyone yet, but now that I have the new company phone number, I'll make sure that Ann gets that to everybody. Make sure that, I'm available anytime. Happy to chat. Look forward to getting into a regular cadence
It would be
of
great.
communication.
Sure, she gets the cell phone number to us.
Yeah. That's it.
But that's a different number. We have you. I might have those contacts from we were.
Yeah, you have my personal number, and then I just got the company number today. I have not previously had a company phone.
Okay, yeah, just have Ann.
Yeah, we'll get that out. Get that out this afternoon.
Great.
Thank
you. Anything else we need to go over today? Nope. Okay, so remember, last call on budget amendments next Tuesday. Thank you. We're adjourned.
I will have none.